This is something I haven't talked about at all publicly yet, but I've been meaning to for a while.
When I grab you by your neck and you start annoying me, trying to resist, and I just
passports, man. If I fuck up and England wants me in jail, I can fly to Nigeria, or an American, or an English, or a Polish, or an Estonian. I have so many passports. Are you gonna block them all? They can't stop me traveling. There's always a passport I can pull out. There's always a driver's license I can pull out. If you ban one, I've got another one.
So this is the guy that everybody is defending. Free Andrew Tate. Free Andrew Tate, the conservative movement. Now,
welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle.
What's up?
And tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite people on planet Earth, Andrew Tate.
Mm-hmm.
It may come as no surprise to the Resistance Chicks family that new allegations have come out against our favorite Playboy, Andrew Tate. Lauren Southern, who we have showcased on this show many times for her documentaries and fantastic coverage of world news. She has literally traveled the world. She has been banned from traveling around the world, and she has kept it real from day one. Now, Lauren, self-admitted, has made a lot of mistakes in her life and in her very short career. She's super young. She's 29 years old. But in her career, which started around the same time that ours did, maybe a couple of years after, she has gotten involved with some pretty shady people. And she has made mistakes, and she has admitted to those mistakes. However, no matter what you do as far as making mistakes go, as we say on this show, and as everybody says, no means no. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I want to kind of get to on the punchline here is targeting individuals. When you are a professional blogger, vlogger, podcaster, documentary maker, like Lauren Southern, people see you, people want you, and you get stalkers. What happens when someone targets you and they have a name for themselves and they have their own connections? Mm-hmm. And then the next thing you know, you find that the people that you love, the people that you are connected with, the people that you trust have put you in a situation where, as far as some people are looking at, you may have been trafficked and you didn't even know it to a sex eglo maniac like Andrew Tate. Lauren Southern has a book coming out. And in that book, she is telling her story. She's been through a lot. She's been through a marriage. She's been through a divorce. She's been through partnerships that did not go very well and ended poorly. She's been connected to some of our favorites like Tommy Robinson, and we're going to talk about Tommy tonight. Tommy, again, may not be all that Resistance Chicks thought that he was. Now, the title of this show is Lauren Southern's Shocking New Revelations About Andrew Tate, and we believe her. So many people have been hoodwinked by this monstrous criminal. And they have been taken, and they are lulled into a position of defense by default. They don't care what anyone has to say about Andrew Tate. They are convinced that he is God's gift to manliness in the MAGA movement. And that's it. That's all they need to know. Interestingly enough, Leah, we got a message on resistancechicks.com last night after we did our expose on John MacArthur. And this is from Tracy. She says, I'm reaching out, and this is not why we're doing today's show, but I found it very interesting. She says, I'm reaching out to you with some information about someone I learned who is a public figure after seeing the Monsters documentary. Now, we did a documentary that I highly recommend everyone watch. It's called Alfred Kinsey and the Monsters of America. Andrew Tate certainly qualifies as a monster of America, even though he's not American. So this person just watched our Monsters of America documentary that we instructed you guys to watch last week because it hadn't come up in a while. And thank you for those of you that actually listened and went and watched it. You can go to resistancechicks.com and you can watch it. Just put in the word monsters and it will come up in the search bar. His name is Andrew Tate. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Benny Johnson defend this sick monster who on Aquarius, his YouTube channel, calls Tate out. Tate, I don't know what this word is, but makes sick comments about how he doesn't want sex with women. He wants to blank them. So he can make them do whatever that he wants and yada, yada, yada. Nothing more than sex trafficking women. He, Andrew Tate, is a Muslim and a sick pedo. This is from the comment from our viewer here. It says, please call him out on your show. I know Leah and Michelle, you guys can do it after your documentary. I want this sick monster called out more than Aquarius calling him out. I love you, ladies. Your Monsters documentary called me to do this when I learned of Tate. Thank you. Tracy, I am so glad that you sent that for many reasons. One of them being, whenever we step out to do something, it's really nice to have confirmation. We've actually done several episodes and exposés on Andrew Tate. That clip that I just used in our intro, if you missed it, it's a 5-minute clip. I don't know if we actually ever published it. We did not publish it because of one reason and one reason only. And this is why I am so proud of this girl over here, Lauren Southern, because Andrew Tate is one of those people that can have you Clinton'd. Like, I kid you not. Like, this man is dangerous. Now, we are over that now.
But it's not that we were concerned of personal safety. It's that he had an online set of trolls that they learned how to, what I would say, Clinton you online.
100%.
So they would mass report you, and they did this. And I saw this happen to several people. One guy's name was Nick Monroe. He had 2 channels. One was Crab Crawler, and one was Nick Monroe. And when they mass report you and they hound you, they will try to take you down. Even right now, they are suing like 5 different people that literally all they do is post videos of the Tates in their own words. And there was one victim in Florida who came forward, and they are suing her into oblivion. They sent a man to her to stalk her, to follow her. And so they're psychos.
Now, Marlene, I'm going to ask Leah to take this question or comment here over on Facebook, because I could do an intro about this for the next hour or two. And Leah said she wants to keep it short.
We do. I want to keep this short.
But Leah, we have to start from day one because Marlene says, I have no idea who these people are. So Leah, for people who have no idea who Lauren is and people who have no idea who Andrew Tate is, what are we going to, who are we talking about before we get into it?
All right. Let's go to,
and I don't have your tabs up yet. So just give me a minute.
So you can see a video of who is Lauren Southern. Lauren Southern was the rights darling girl. If you've been following Trump at all since like 2016, she came on the scene around 2018. And let's see if there's a video here. Let's see.
She has done documentaries. We have played portions.
Go to her channel.
I think we've played almost her entire documentary on our show once.
Tim Pool's already done a video on
everybody has been doing a video on this. But what's unfortunate is that her calling out what happened to her with Andrew Tate, a lot of people are calling her a liar. And they're saying that she's not telling the truth. And that's why we put in this title, and we believe her.
So I want you just to go to Lauren Southern's YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you who she is in her own words. She's done an amazing documentary called
probably her best work ever.
Yeah.
Hands
down. No, she did. She's done 2. She's done one called
Farmlands.
Borderless and one called Farmlands.
Both of them are phenomenal.
One is she went, and we'll just play the trailer to the Borderless, the documentary, and we'll just kind of give you an idea who she is. She is a right-wing darling. That's all I know how to describe her as. And in the beginning, She was just bombastic, I think is the word. She was fearless. She did videos with Milo. She teamed up with Tommy Robinson. And what she was really exposing at the time was the cool thing to expose was the Muslim grooming gangs and radical Islam. And she actually got banned from 2 countries, the UK and Australia. She was saying things that nobody else would say or you couldn't say. And she rose to fame that way. And she was like legit one of the biggest YouTubers. I mean, she's got 700,000 followers on YouTube. And as far as the right goes, she was like the it girl. All right, let's play this documentary.
Well, this is the actual. This is not the trailer.
Oh, that's
play the trailer.
No, is there a trailer? The beginning will tell you what it's about.
Okay.
Ever since I started my work in politics, I have heard stories and rumors of something sinister happening in South Africa. I was regularly sent images and videos claiming there was a white genocide going on right now. As a journalist,
so I'm just going to pop through here. She went to South Africa.
He said this happened.
Was it an
and we played these clips. Okay, so this is her documentary, and she did another documentary. I don't know why Borderless isn't up here.
It probably got taken down.
No, mine has Borderless up.
Oh, okay.
She's got the Farmland series, the Borderless series, and then I want to see if she's got some of her old stuff up here at all.
So it would be under just videos. I don't know how many videos she's done.
When she was super duper famous. I don't know if she's like just go to her channel.
Here's
just kind of scroll through.
Here's the Borderless right here.
Recently, my very first documentary was released, and the response has been incredible. It's been mentioned by politicians, discussed on mainstream television, debated in newspapers, and even shown in the European Parliament. Raised awareness has pushed nations like Russia and Australia to consider refuge for the South African minority from a country in turmoil. It's shown me that real change is not out of reach. If you tell a story, if you show the truth, people will listen. And that's what brings me to the next part of my journey, thousands of miles north in the heartland of Europe, a continent facing one of the largest demographic shifts in human history. After the president of the most powerful nation on earth gave a solemn warning to European leaders that waves of immigration were changing the culture of their continent, it sparked a media frenzy. He was condemned, demeaned, insulted, but it sparked a conversation that needed to be had. And I'm here to have that conversation. Just how many people...
Okay, so you can pause
So
that.
this is not the trailer. That was just her it was more of like an advertisement.
Okay. But then you'll see she's done things with Tim Pool. And this was her channel that she created after she left Ezra Levant at The Rebel.
Hello. Okay, so you guys probably haven't heard from me in a while, and that's because there has been a lot going on behind the scenes with my work, with my life. It's like this, and
so then she went independent. So you can, this is, I don't know, here's another one. Get an idea of how she and Milo went to Berkeley. She was in it when the right was going after the left.
Hey guys, so I just got back from the absolute insanity that was the Berkeley Free Speech Rally.
Okay, so that's Lauren. All right. She
was actually on Sky News Australia for a while.
She was. So
like as a host.
Her story is crazy. She came to the forefront as this conservative, like trad girl, and then lo and behold, she actually is a party girl who likes to party, and she sleeps around. That much she does not deny. She's very young, and when all this was going on, she was 19, 20, 21, 22. The story we're about to relate started in 2018. She was on the scene before that. I think some of these videos go back to 9 years ago. Okay. So she's been around for a while. She worked for Ezra Levant. She's
not. I want to clarify
at the Rebel
something.
News in Canada. She's Canadian.
she is no small fry. Like in our movement, Lauren is huge. Like she's literally huge. She's up there. She's Tommy Robinson. Okay. She's Milo Yiannopoulos. She's like, she's Lauren. I don't know how else to explain it. If you don't know who she is, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to just take our word for it. You'll get to know her throughout today's show. But like, I don't say that to other than to just give you context. This isn't just some small podcaster who has a story about Andrew Tate. Okay. This is somebody who has a massive following and had a massive following at the time that Andrew Tate literally targeted her.
Right. So that the rest
Allegedly.
for the rest of the people, you already know who Lauren is. Okay. I'll fill you in a little bit more. So Lauren, a little bit after this incident that we're going to talk about that takes place, that involves Tommy Robinson and cocaine and a lot of other people. And if you don't know who Tommy is, I can't help you, but I'll play a video. She found a guy and she got married and she got pregnant. And in our movement, there's a big push for trad, traditional wives who stay at home, who cook, who clean, who put on lipstick, wear the skirts, do the thing. She was a girl boss traveling the world, doing the thing. And this guy, this federal agent, fell so much in love with her. And then another part of her story was that he demanded that she leave her family in Canada and go live with him in Australia. But the Australian government put the chutzpah on her and told her she couldn't act politically. And then he said, I don't want you to act politically. So she gets put in this really crazy, weird, abusive relationship. She's away from her home. She's away from her family. She's got a little country. She's got a little child. And not only that, she makes a video. She's like, I'm leaving politics. I'm leaving all these things because her husband at the time made her do all these things. And he was very abusive. She tells a story about how like he would lock her out of the house if he would get angry with her. He would leave for days. He would constantly threaten to divorce her. He was unhinged. He was a crazy man. My opinion is that whether it was the devil or whether it was an actual, deep state op, he didn't love her. He didn't want to marry her. He didn't want anything to do with her. I believe that he was sent to just mess with her mind.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's been kind of broken and trying to come back ever since. She's made all these kind of videos of I've learned, and she's learned a lot. I still think, and I've asked her to come on my show. I still think she has, I'm just going to throw this out there because I don't think she'll come on if I say this, but okay. She has a lot of self-confidence in herself. Let's put it that way. And it's been broken down, but she keeps coming back. I'm not going to paint her, and I don't think she paints herself as some sort of victim. But she is a victim of crime. And what a lot of people have said is that if you put yourself out there in these situations, those are the girls that do end up raped, okay? That do end up sexually assaulted, that because they're out there. I don't recommend anybody socially drink, but I'm telling you, in the MAGA movement, I would say 3/4 of the people do. Okay.
So let me also throw this out there as far as socially drinking versus date rape drugs. Here's the problem. What we have discovered from somebody that we know, I don't count as like a personal friend, but somebody that I know, and I count as a good acquaintance in the MAGA movement. She was socially drinking and has a story where she was assaulted, AKA raped, because she woke up and she's not dressed, but she was friends with this person, but she did not, consent. Here's the issue. When you've been drinking, you automatically assume I was drinking. And so I don't remember what happened, and you blame it on the alcohol. If you were not drinking and you don't remember what happened, 100% you were drugged. So this is why I don't recommend social drinking, because either way you can be drugged. All right. But the problem with a lot of these girls is that they wake up the next day and they can't remember because they're like, I know I was drinking, and like, did I just drink too much? That's never going to happen to Leah and Michelle. We're never going to be date rape drugged. Okay, first of all, we're not, because we're always together, but we're never going to be date rape drugged and then wake up the next day and go, oh, well, I was just drinking, so maybe that's what it was. If I can't remember what happened, I know I was drugged. So that's one of the reasons why I'm totally against the social drinking, because it's like, that's how they get you. That's why they want you to drink. And that's why these men always ask you to drink. Because they're counting on the fact that the next day you're going to wake up and be like, oh, well, I can't really remember. So, Leah, I do have your tabs up if you would like me to play anything.
I want you just to bring up the picture here of Andrew Tate with all the different podcasters. So Andrew Tate with Paul Joseph Watson, Benny Johnson, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Alex Jones. Now, before Andrew Tate was Andrew Tate, okay, before anybody knew who he was, she met him, okay? And I'm sorry, I don't have time to bring everybody up to snuff and show you pictures of who Tommy is and who George and Kaylin are. Maybe Michelle can find a picture of George and Kaylin while we're talking. But if you've been with us for a while, you know who George and Kaylin are. They worked with Thomas Robinson for years.
How do you spell Kaylin?
It's Colin.
That's Colin.
But they call him Kaylin, whatever.
That's weird.
And then put Tommy Robinson or something.
Okay.
And it'll come up. Should come up. There you go.
Not really. I don't think we're spelling Colin right.
Okay. Well, it'll be in here somewhere.
Okay.
The spelling of it.
I'm not screen sharing this part, so it doesn't matter that I'm failing.
Call it Caolan.
Okay. Well, that wasn't even close.
That's why.
Not your fault. That's weird. Caolan.
Yes.
Okay.
So just bring him up that page and you can see
Okay.
that he was like Tommy's right-hand guy. Okay. And if you find a video, just to kind of give some reference. So this is Lauren Southern. And if you've been following us, follow Andrew Tate for a while, then you'll know why this means a lot to us. Okay.
Points. Now, I don't think there's anyone more qualified to talk about the effects of mass migration and Islamism in Europe. Tommy witnessed firsthand.
Beyond belief. I went to make some of the biggest documentaries that have been on the right. I directed Farmlands, the South African genocide one. Trump tweeted that. And then I ended up being hired by Alex Jones to do a movie about free speech. So I was at the center of that online right system, like right in the middle of it. And it happened all in just a year. The New York Times did an assessment on the amount of views that I was attributed to, as in either produced, directed, or presented. And it was 500 million. It was huge, to the point where I walk to work every day across Millennium Bridge. I get recognized at least once a week from someone who thinks that I'm still right-wing, who's like, oh, mate, like, keep up the good work. So I definitely entered the public consciousness.
While we were talking, I sensed that revisiting these experiences was impacting Kaylin.
God, it's so stressful talking about this. My heart is 130.
Sorry, that's your
yeah, I find this really stressful. Oh my God.
If you tap it, does it come up?
Yeah.
You just show it.
No. no, I don't want to. So because it makes me look a bit nuts. It's really weird talking about it because I feel like it never happened now, because it's, you know, it is long ago. It's been 2 years since I left. And the work I do now is so different that it feels like another planet. But I wish I could take down.
He helped raise money for Tommy when he was in jail.
When we were covering Tommy Robinson back in 2017, 2018, we were covering footage with Kaylin like everywhere that Tommy went.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm still radicalizing people now.
We lived
Those videos
this, like
still
we
have
weren't
comments
there,
every
but
day, and I wish I could tell every single one who's watching it that it's bullshit.
I wanted to know what his colleagues were like once he turned off his cameras.
I loved working with Tommy and Alex. Like I mean, Tommy knew how useful I was to him, and so did Alex. They would be incredibly complimentary about me. And also, like, we felt like we were saving the world. Like, I was driving up and down the UK on the M4, and we had people waving to us from their car windows, and we were going to go to a northern town to expose something that the media hadn't done. And it just felt like we were on an amazing crusade. It felt like we were on the side of good.
What do you think of Tommy now?
I want to play a little bit more of this because I think this is kind of
okay. But I want to also just forgiving of the context. This man, Kaylin, was in a gay relationship with a man named George, which we showed you pictures of that a second ago, and they were business partners and producers
with Tommy
and Lauren. Tommy Robinson and Lauren Southern, okay? And like I said, like he just said, they worked with Alex Jones. When we were covering Alex Jones, when we were on InfoWars, Kaylin and George were also often on InfoWars because they were working with Alex Jones.
I think Tommy is a liar. Like, I think the way that he treated me, a lot of it was just a front. And I realized that it was just all an act to grow and to make a lot of money. I thought that he cared about this stuff. I thought that he cared about saving Britain and saving, like, young girls from being raped in Rotherham and all this kind of stuff. But it was about making money.
Robinson's finances have come under fire since Caitlin started working to expose him. The misuse of donations on coke and prostitutes has been reported, something which Robinson denies.
I've just seen the video that Caitlin's posted, so I don't want any of the people who have donated that money to think in any way that I've had any pocket in that money. Just because I know when questions like this get raised, it makes people think.
Towards the very end of working with him, like right as I quit, I remember him making really homophobic comments thinking that I wasn't listening and like actually even about me. So a lot of it was genuinely just bullshit.
Do you think he's racist?
It's a hard question. A lot of people that I worked with are racist. But Tommy doesn't even have any views. Like, he doesn't care about anything except for himself and his own money.
All right, guys, we are at the Capitol right now.
The Capitol riot, the thing that was really striking about that for me was it didn't feel like, it never felt like a political revolution in my eyes. Like, obviously they're storming the Capitol and you think, oh my God, like this is the mob is like attacking the heart of power. But then you see them and they get in there and they're all, it's just this.
You want to cover January 6th?
They're taking selfies.
I don't know why he's talking about it.
They're going
honestly.
live. And it's almost
I think
like
they're now talking about leaving the right.
I thought I have done so much damage to society and to the political spectrum that I never want anything to do with politics again, whether it's the left or the right or anything. And then when I saw that what I had contributed to had continued to rise, people like Tommy had continued to profit from it and continued to do damage from it. And those videos of me on Rebel Media are still live now, getting more and more views. I realized that it's not enough to just walk away and just to leave it behind.
So here's the thing. In this sphere, you're going to find that some of the heroes, the people that get viral, they really just know what to say.
Yeah.
And they're bold enough to say it. And here's the thing. You're either filled with the power of God to say the bold thing, or you're doing it for money.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm learning now more and more. Or you're learning it, or you're doing it for fame, or you're doing it for yourself, and you're not okay in the head.
Yeah.
There's a reason why everyone has been silent up until Donald Trump. Because you have to have a certain kind of chutzpah to say things that they were saying. And when I find out now that those with the biggest mouths, and I'm probably going to have to, it's like, is it everybody? And, you know, Patriot Gallery, our mom, she hasn't been really watching anybody for a while. I would say, yes, it's everybody. I know for a fact, Tim Pool I know that he picks topics because he sees the money roll in. He's pulling in, you know, $100,000 per episode, $200,000 per episode. And he's even doing the show on Lauren Southern, who he was friends with. He started out with just 10 grand offer from Paul Joseph Watson to go film in Malmö, Sweden. And he was a leftist, but he found himself being pulled more to the right. Not because I believe he really believes a lot of these things, or maybe he has convinced himself of a lot of things, but because the money is just so good. The views mean money when you're Tim Pool. Views mean money when you're Lauren Southern. And that means that you're rising in these numbers. And so I'm going to start off now with Lauren Southern and her story. Okay. Cause this is about Lauren. But I wanted to show you who George was and talk about Tommy a little bit, because that's how this particular chapter of her book starts.
Can I write literally just one more thing real quick? And this is just for context, because I saw somebody else leave this comment. The more names Michelle mentions, the less I know. All right. So here's why this is important.
Please. Are you guys not watch our show?
No, wait. Like, Leah, seriously.
No, I'm serious.
You'd have to watch like every episode to catch Lauren and Tommy, because we mentioned them like maybe
we do
once
shows
every
on Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, but like we mentioned them like maybe once every 30 shows.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so like
I know that you would know Lauren, but Andrew Tate and Tommy, I feel you.
But we don't even mention Andrew Tate. Like, yes, we've done episodes,
I feel like you
but
guys
it's
get tired
possible.
of hearing about Andrew Tate.
That's people that tune in every day, but people that don't tune in every day, I get it. But I would just like, and please, those that do tune in all the time, bear with me and give me a little bit of patience and grace here. We have been doing this since 2017. We're in our 8th year. So sometimes you start watching a television show in the 8th season, going into the 9th season. And the reason why people started watching was because seasons 1 and 2 were the best of all of them. Now, I happen to think that we've been getting better over the years, but that's just me. Okay. And all of the characters from episodes 1 and 2 died off, or they got like cut from the show or something like that. And so over the years, we have evolved as new people have come on the scenes. But the series of Resistance Chicks started on the foundation of Lauren Southern and Tommy Robinson and George and Kaylin. And like, that's where we started 8 years ago when we were covering these people. Ezra Levant, Rebel News, Milo Yiannopoulos, like all of these names, those were the people that in the very beginning, because we were one of the only podcasters out there. I know that sounds crazy based on our numbers and the fact that you are literally watching the greatest podcast on the internet, hands down. And why is it that we're highly censored? Because we tell the truth. Okay. And I don't mean to sound like, oh, tooting my own horn here. But in the beginning, it was just us, right? There, like literally a breaking news story would happen. And even Lauren wasn't covering it live. And even Tim Pool wasn't covering it live.
He wasn't even there. There was no
literally, it was Alex Jones and Resistance Chicks were like the only podcast out there. So when you went to YouTube and you looked at the Syria bombing, boom, here comes Resistance Chicks. Like
we were on the front page all the time.
We were the front Google page. Results.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't say that to toot my horn. I say that I get that you may not know who these people are, but they're part of the Resistance Chick story from way back. Right. And that's why it's important to us, and it's important to the movement, because there was no movement without these people. They were the foundation of the movement. They were boots on the ground, where Leah and Michelle were in our living room broadcasting this stuff. And we traveled a couple of places.
We were the people covering what they were covering.
Okay. You had Millie, you had Lauren, you had Tommy, and they were going places, literally boots on the ground doing the stuff. And then Leah and I were live streaming it or covering it or talking about it or whatever.
And here's the thing.
We didn't start doing in-person things until a couple years later.
Those people in the beginning, like even the stuff I'm mauling you, we were getting pretty radical in how we would describe things. Like we were going pretty heavy against Muslims and radical Islam.
We used to have to literally call Islam the religion that shall not be named because our videos would get taken down. Yeah. Right now, we have our quote unquote Resistance Chicks channel given back. We're stuck at some sort of low number of subscribers, and a whole, like literally 300 of our videos are gone. All of our views are gone, but at least the channel's back temporarily. I don't know how long it's going to stay there, but our Mass Faith 3 channel, which was our biggest channel, YouTube refuses to give back. And even if they do or did or whatever, we're still missing 300 to 500 videos minimum.
Our coverage of Lauren and Tommy,
it's all gone.
That got us the strikes.
Yeah.
So that is very personal to us.
Yes.
All right.
It's all very personal. And so like, I get that you guys may not know because you didn't become patriots
until after maybe COVID or something.
Exactly. And you didn't come on the scene. You didn't go to the alternative media. Maybe you were watching Fox News prior to that. I didn't know judging because we used to watch Fox News too.
No, you probably weren't even there. You probably came in and you know Dr. Robert Malone and Peter McCullough and
Dr. Erdis.
You probably know those names because of the COVID, but there was a whole world 4 years of Trump before COVID.
Yeah.
And we were enmeshed in that. And these people were the top dogs. Okay.
And so now one of the people that we've been covering as one of the greatest monsters of our era and time, we're now finding out that Lauren, who we've also been covering for 8 years, has her own story about him.
And we're also finding that truly a lot of the rumors around Tommy Robinson are true and that he is not a good person. And so we're having to walk back a lot of things. And so this is so visceral for us. Because we're finding out, like with Tim Ballard is not a good person. And you know what's so funny is when I tell people, well, they're just not a good person, like they don't like that. People hate that. They're like, well, I don't really care if you're not a good person. Like people hate it. Like, so I have to be specific. Tim Ballard had women do sexual things to him and set them up. Okay. Not a good person. It seems that Tommy actually is and has been a cocaine addict and got people to do cocaine with him. And
lost his marriage over it.
And possibly, I don't have the proof on the prostitutes, but it sounds likely. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff going on around this stuff. We used to cover, what we were covering was the young people who were pushing back against mass migration.
Nana, this is terrible. She says, my daughter was raped and wasn't drinking and no drug was involved. She did, however, sneak out after midnight to meet an older boy to, quote, hang out. That is awful.
I'm so sorry for that. Yeah.
That is so, so terrible.
All right. So this is Lauren. We're going to Lauren. You can look up who she is later. I've decided to release a few chapters of this book for free, specifically those involving Andrew Tate and his ongoing criminal cases. Why is he important? Andrew Tate is a rapist and a sex trafficker, and there are cases against him in Romania, in the UK, and in the United States, and conservative podcasters have propped him up, most notably Tucker Carlson, Benny Johnson, Trump's lawyer, and Candace Owens. Okay? So she's speaking out. Lauren is speaking out right now. Let me address a few things before you get into the said chapters. Number one, the reason these chapters aren't behind a paywall, Michelle, we can take turns reading these points here, is because they weren't written with the intention of profiting off of this incident. They were written because they're part of my story and they're true. If you're here just to read about Tate or to think this is some kind of selling point, please don't buy the book. You won't find anything more significant about him in its pages beyond what's already here for free.
No, I can assure you, no one is more aware of the cosmic irony or the colossal train wreck of my life than I am. I've made mistakes, some mine alone, others shaped by the psychological toll of existing in a deeply toxic political space. If you're here to point these things out, you're too late. I've already written the book. I've named the skeletons, told the stories, owned my mess. But let's be clear, my personal drama doesn't change the credibility of claims I've made. I hope those who think for themselves can see past the name calling and attempts to muddy the water that will certainly come about by influencers for hire trying to cash in or cover their assets.
Assets, yes. Boudet. I was not the first person to talk about this event publicly. So this happened to her and other people knew. Others involved chose to speak out and purvey a distorted version of these events, not just to get ahead of the narrative, but to undermine other witnesses and other legitimate cases of assault and trafficking. I've spent much of my life since then mentally avoiding this experience and the drama surrounding it, but I cannot remain silent when my story is being twisted and used as a tool to discredit others. It would be unjust not to set the record straight.
Lauren continues, I understand people will want evidence for some of the claims being made here, and that's completely fair. Given the deeply personal nature of the material, I've shared it privately with two media sources, one mainstream and left-leaning, the other independent and right-leaning. I did this knowing readers have different levels of trust in different outlets and wanted to offer a chance for clarity through whichever lens they find more credible. I'll hyperlink their pieces when I get a chance. May take a few days. I haven't done any interviews and don't plan to. If anyone else seems unusually informed, no, it's not some grand matrix conspiracy, just a few DMs and some advanced copies in the mail. And while this is my account, it's not the only one. Another book by someone who knows this story from a very different angle is on the way.
Interesting. Her husband may be writing a book?
I don't know.
I've mentioned on these pages that I've assisted with investigations where and when I could, though for much of my life I stayed on the sidelines out of fear and a desire to preserve my anonymity. Since that's no longer an issue, I want to make it clear that I'm willing to help in any way I can in a more official capacity, especially with the ongoing cases against Andrew Tate in Romania and elsewhere, if they would like to reach out to me.
I've seen the claims online that many of the anonymous witnesses don't exist and that they've been paid off or are part of some, quote, deep state plot, every kind of misdirection imaginable. I don't know any of these women personally, but I do know that I exist, and I know that no one paid me to come forward. Everything in the book and here is written in my own words and published by me. No ghostwriters, no sponsors, no shady backers, just hundreds of hours of my time and more sleepless nights than I care to count.
I don't know if the legal cases will be successful. What I do know is that in a world where you can buy off algorithms and politicians, the truth is hard to find, and it certainly isn't always officially verified. As we've just seen recently with Epstein, information is powerful though. And the more people who understand the digital illusion we're living in, the closer we get to breaking it. I know parts of the book I've written will be used as political bludgeons in a culture war. I know it'll be chopped up into clickbait, stripped of context, and turned into ammo for people who haven't even read the page. The point, of course, is that in the chaos, maybe it will find its way to a handful of people trying to get out of this digital hall of mirrors, or even fewer who still actually read books.
My ultimate hope with the publication of these chapters, and more importantly, with my full book, is for healing. Even for those who have hurt me, I've learned well in my own life that some healing only comes from purifying fire. I hope my care in writing these words, these notes and chapters give the truth the best chance to breathe in a media ecosystem that thrives on distortion and unreality. Let's see if it makes it out alive.
So I'm having a little bit of deja vu, but I'm going to say this about Lauren. I don't know if she can be trusted. If I wanted somebody to own their mess, this is the best way possible. Okay. I'm learning now. I'm not trusting anybody, and you shouldn't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody but God. Don't trust Trump. Don't even trust Michelle and I.
Come on.
Listen to what we say. If it melds with your spirit, run with it. Obviously, we've been wrong about Tommy Robinson. I'm ashamed.
And we were wrong about Tim Ballard, and we were wrong about Scott Kesterson.
Yes. And we have our own story to tell. And, you know, tonight is a really great night for us to tell you that we have a story to tell about Scott Kesterson. Not as brutal or as gruesome as this story with Lauren, because we come from different backgrounds and we start at different starting points. She didn't start at the Christian starting point. She started it at a pretend Christian starting point, Christian in quotes. We started at a Christian point. So when she falls, it's going to go from here to here. When we fall, it goes from here to here. Okay. So here, other people might not see it as a big deal. Okay. What happened to us? Okay. Hopefully people do, but we were scammed. We were abused and we were taken advantage of. Okay. Not to this extent, but to the extent of here to here or from here to here. Yes.
And the con artistry and the sycophantry, I just made that word up, is the same.
Is the same. In reading her story and in reading what happened to her, it can be paralleled to what happened to us if you were writing it from a Christian perspective through a Christian lens and with Christian people. Okay. And it's just the similarities in the actions, in the words, in the purity of the person falling down here, and the purity falling here, and in not wanting to tell the story and all these different things. That's why I feel so visceral about this, especially with like Tommy and doing the cocaine and Tim Ballard and all these men and all these people making so much money out of this. And here's the thing. The problem I do have is that I want to buy her book. I'm going to give her money. Is she writing this book just to make money? I don't know. Will she make money? She's going to make a heck of a lot of money on this book. And
why not? Honestly, I don't even care. Like, I don't know to say why not, whatever. Okay. Like, listen, if you have a story to tell, I want to tell our bike trip story. I've been trying to do that for, 20 years.
But
like, I want to tell the story. I want to write it out. I want people to read it.
I feel like Lauren, in her own faulty way, is still part of the system.
Yeah.
And we are not.
Right.
And that's. So I want to throw that out there.
And we never have been.
And we never have been. We've always only been on the outside. Chapter introduction about crime in the digital age has been cut. Cullen and George were Tommy and I's mutual video team at the time, referenced in earlier chapters. So that's explaining. I'm not entirely sure how the conversations leading up to it went, and part of me dreads just how sinister they may have been. But around February 2018, Tommy Robinson mentioned to Kaylin, George, and me that he had been in contact with some very wealthy crypto investors in Eastern Europe who might be interested in sponsoring a larger media project that we could all build together. Things were going incredibly well with my YouTube views, just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. But as any up-and-coming online influencer knows, you can never just be okay with things. That's not us, by the way. You're always chasing the next big idea. Not us, by the way. I just want to be clear. The next project, the next opportunity. And they were. We are covering them doing that, but we weren't. A right-wing European media outlet hosted by some of the most famous figures in the dissident right. It sounded crazy. But with the right funding, maybe it could work. How could I say no?
The flights were booked almost instantly by the investors, and I'll never forget showing up at the airport in Luton with Kaylin and George early in the morning. Tommy was off his head, as usual, but I wasn't familiar enough with the antics of cocaine addicts to fully understand the gravity of it. He wore a matching designer tracksuit, a typical look, and kept clenching his jaw, motor-mouthing between paranoid rants and overly enthusiastic anticipation. He somehow smuggled an absurd amount of cocaine through the airport security, incredibly cheeky about it, as always.
So here's the thing. And I'm going to read just a little bit more, and then I'll read a couple paragraphs and get back to you. I read this as like I could see every every little bit happening. So here you have Tommy Robinson, Kaylin and George, and she knows he does cocaine. And Tommy Robinson brings cocaine on the airplane and does lines in the bathroom. Okay? And here's the thing. George is talking about the cocaine too. This is corroborated, I guess, is a well-known secret.
Open secret, yeah.
Now, I know the TSA and every equivalent agency is largely nothing more than a time-wasting joke. Back then, I still clung to the illusion that airport security actually served a purpose. Watching Tommy slip into the plane's bathroom again and again to do lines left me in a surreal state. It felt like I was living on autopilot, watching a movie I didn't understand, one that was no longer my story, but somebody else's. I've heard every motivational podcast about taking extreme responsibility for your life, and maybe in a twisted way, I tried to avoid responsibility by taking my hands off the wheel entirely. Not my problem. As if I had no role in the truck flying off the cliff. My people-pleasing passive self had no business being on that plane unsupervised with a coked-up Tommy en route to some shady meeting in Eastern Europe, but there I was nodding along to every unhinged plan like it made perfect sense. Go ahead.
Honestly, I was just as bad as Tommy, only I didn't need cocaine to fuel my delusions. He was probably doing drugs because he knew how insane everything was. I was worse. I actually thought it was serious. I was sitting there mentally drafting business talking points, wondering if we needed a Google Docs slideshow. Guys, do we have a plan here? Anytime I asked about the investors, the answers were vague and broken. Something about a professional boxer or whatever. Why a boxer in Eastern Europe would want to invest in our company was beyond me, but sure. They paid for the flights and agreed to the meeting. What's the worst that could happen?
When we landed in Romania, Tommy told us the investors had sent cars. You're going to love these blokes, he chirped. Still buzzing while the rest of us were groggy from the morning flight, we grabbed our bags and headed to the airport exit. I'd traveled through enough of Europe, including the Eastern Bloc, to be familiar with the dreary landscapes and this brutalistic architecture. But the people waiting for us were hard to miss. They stood out like sore thumbs against the washed-out Balkan backdrop and the aging Dacia Super R Novas from 2001. Two sharply dressed men leaned against polished sports cars, waving as we rolled our suitcases down the walkway. The cars looked comically out of place and completely impractical for our luggage. But I wasn't about to complain. At least the investors clearly had money. And I'd never ridden a car like that before. Tommy clasped his hands with his acquaintance in one of those firm, pulling handshakes and turned into a quick, back pat and half hug, the kind that was more about respect than warmth. As it turned out, the pair were brothers, and after the greeting, they ushered us into their cars, but not before making it clear that I would be personally escorted by a man named Andrew. He had a wide grin and a unique lisp that reminded me of an old childhood friend, but seemed a bit too eager to get me alone. I figured we were all headed to the same place anyway, and Colin and George and Tommy all knew where I was and who I was with, and Andrew seemed harmless enough, maybe even a fan. I didn't want to overthink it. Before I'd even finished buckling my seatbelt, he was telling me how much he liked my work.
I won't pretend I remember exactly how the conversation went, but Andrew clearly viewed me as some kind of hero, someone saving the Western world. He'd watched plenty of my content. He referenced it, almost reverently. Between flirtatious smiles and compliments, he was nice, charming even, and I won't lie, I wasn't exactly disappointed to get a break from Tommy's antics and have a conversation with someone who was actually sober. Tommy mentioned he needed a nap before our meeting with the investors that evening. He needed much more than a nap. So after we stopped at the hotel, Andrew asked if I was hungry and if he could take me to grab an early dinner before we met up at the compound, quote, later. The sunlight was still high. We had plenty of time to kill, so I said yes without thinking. I wasn't in the habit of turning down food. Years of financial stress made me frugal to a fault. My travels around Europe were basically a McDonald's tour and something my friends consistently teased me about. The steakhouse Andrew took me to was a stark departure from my usual dining choices. I'd say it was upscale, but everything seemed fancy compared to my chicken nugget dinners. We really did get along, but seeing someone with so much apparent wealth and success, I found myself curious about his ultimate goals in life. The Tate brothers carried themselves like they owned the place, well-dressed, fit, with nice cars, and enough money to start an entire news organization.
I don't know if I was slowly waking up from my dopamine-induced daze, but part of me was just not satisfied with what I was seeing or where I was going. If I built a news network, if I got more fame, if I got more wealth, what was it all for? I wanted to know where this was headed. I can't help but laugh at the way I used to question men. They'd confidently declare their plans to dominate their field or conquer the world. And I would simply stare into their eyes and say, but why? For what? What does this do for your soul? I'd watch something in them crack, something I didn't understand yet. Really, I'd ask them those questions because they were the same ones I was asking myself. Some part of me hoped these successful men would have the answer. But I hadn't yet realized that part of the journey up meant taking those kinds of questions and lining them up against a wall for execution without trial. Looking back, it's clear Andrew humored a lot of my queries, especially those about whether he wanted to start a family or get married. You see, if I found the right woman, of course, that's what life is all about. Family. It's how we rebuild the Western civilization, he mused. But he lingered on that if just a little too long for it to feel sincere. There was an awkwardness in his response, like he was nervous. I might see through it. I remember this part of our conversation well, and it was the first moment that things felt off.
Remember, this is Michelle speaking here for the podcast listeners. Remember, every time we have covered Andrew Tate, we've played clips of his direct quotes that he is against marriage and he believes that marriage is a trap for men and that all men really just need to be sleeping around and have lots of women.
So these are lies that he's telling.
So he's literally lying, and Lauren is kind of catching on to it.
That if I find the right woman, I should. That's what life is all about, isn't it?
They're con artists. They tell you what you want to hear. They know what you want to hear. They're not going to tell you the truth.
They studied her.
They had studied her. Exactly. I hadn't learned to spot red flags yet, at least not the kind that wore nice clothes, smiled politely, and echoed your politics back to you like a mirror.
Wow.
Dinner had relaxed me more than it should have. It was almost a rehearsed level of calm. He never said anything wrong, and maybe that was the red flag. After the meal, we returned to the hotel to prepare for the investment meeting. I didn't know what I was expecting the meeting to look like, but it certainly wasn't what I found myself walking into. With Kaylin, George, Tommy, and I all loaded into sports cars, Andrew and his brother Tristan drove us through the dreary side streets of Bucharest neighborhood and not far from our hotel. The final destination didn't look like much at first, just a generic industrial warehouse. But when the giant black gate rolled open, it revealed a scene that would have been obvious to me as a criminal operation if I had any clue how the world worked. We were greeted by a glowing blue pool surrounded by luxury cars as we stepped into the tiled entrance. Remember, this is me again.
You can bring that up. While you're reading, you should bring that up. Andrew Tate's home compound.
Remember that at this time,
and maybe
Lauren
bring up his cars.
is... how old is she at this time? 22?
22.
Very, very, very young. That's a child. Okay, Leah, you can keep reading.
Yeah, so bring up the cars and maybe bring up some pictures so people can see. The building itself looked like it had been designed by an edgy Reddit mod and anime nerds turned Marie Kondo minimalist fanatics. A giant samurai statue was one of the few decorations at the entryway. The flat screen TVs just went all over the walls, flashing cryptocurrency prices. It felt like every decision made here was exactly what a 10-year-old would do if they were suddenly become a multi-billionaire. I want fancy cars, a glowing pool, a big samurai statue, girls, and my favorite e-celebrities. What was more interesting than the decor, though, were the people in the building. You see, at this point, it was hard to tell who was in charge. Was it the brothers? The nerdy-looking crypto bros sitting around a table on computers, eyes glued on their investment screens? It almost seemed like the brothers were the muscle and the drivers, while the crypto guys were the ones doing actual work. I was suddenly snapped out of my fascination with the scenery by an overwhelming sense that something was terribly wrong with Tommy. I'm not sure he had even napped at all. He had somehow maybe gotten some more drugs since landing in Bucharest. It certainly looked that way. So Colin and George exchanged concerned, knowing glances as we watched Tommy lob one social grenade after another into what we hope would be a productive investment meeting. It was nothing short of a disaster. It was beyond obvious to everyone in the room that they were either speaking to a severely mentally ill man or someone inhabiting a completely different drug-induced realm. Watching the reaction of the main crypto bro was something I wish I could describe in a way beyond writing. It's not a perfect comparison, but imagine Donnie Azoff, Jonah Hill in The Wolf of Wall Street enduring Tommy's ramblings. The whole scene felt straight out of an SNL sketch. From this point forward, I'll just call this guy Donnie. What was even more fascinating, though, was that Tommy's behavior was not had no apparent effect on the pitch being delivered from across the table. You see, Donnie pointed to one of the scenes and confidently announced that what appeared to be millions of dollars displayed in green pixels was their coins and they were making in the last 24 hours. I looked up at the screen as the numbers just kept climbing. Another 10,000 as I was just watching. It was incomprehensible to me. We had just entered the era of crypto scams collapsing, but it still hadn't fully settled into the public's consciousness just how far-reaching these pump and dump schemes were. I don't think I or many other influencers at the time really understood all the altcoin jargon yet, and to this point, I did not know that this was how the Tate brothers were making their money. They were scamming people.
We thought that they were making their money on their pimping hose degrees. They
say that they make it with some sort of casino.
So now here's the thing. I'm beginning to wonder, and I mean this genuinely, okay? Andrew Tate is a con man, which means that every word out of his mouth is a lie. So when he comes and he says that he has managed to hustle hundreds of thousands of dollars out of men on like one girl, is that even true?
Yeah.
Or is it just this Bitcoin pump and dump scam?
So they bring in these little nerdy guys.
Yeah.
And they run these crypto scams.
Well, granted, though, like, okay, I was going to say back then, was it that big of a deal? But I guess so.
He started it.
Yeah.
Like he was in on the ground running, right? Just like he was in on the ground running with the OnlyFans girls.
Sure.
Right? You got to give him that.
My head was spinning. Tommy chewing on nothing. Kaylin and George doing their best to look engaged, and the Tate brothers casually lounging in their muscle shirts. I really wish I could remember the exact name they pitched us. If I could, it would probably make you laugh. But after an exhausting technical monologue, Donnie put his hands on the table, looked up and said, we'll call it Freedom Token. Or some nonsense like that. Oh no, I thought. Darn. She uses a curse word there. They want us to sell cryptocurrency. Is this even an investment meeting at all? Despite my growing realization, I still wanted to make something out of all of this. I had nothing to lose at that point, so I interrupted rather awkwardly. The coin stuff is really interesting, but do you plan on putting an initial investment into this media company we're starting, or is this going to be entirely a crypto operation? The men at the table seemed caught off guard, but Donnie quickly scrambled to reassure me. Absolutely. If we can come to an agreement, we'd cover the initial operating costs of the news network and link this token to it, making it mutually beneficial for everyone. Honestly, the token will be something all patriots can get behind. It'll just be a side operation, more of a way for your viewers to earn by sharing and engaging with your content. Barely the focus of the project. Plus, we'd give you all shares of the token for your own benefit. Great, I responded just before he cut me off by launching into another incomprehensible tirade of crypto jargon. Crypto bros are great at this. It's like half the battle is just confusing you enough that you're too embarrassed to ask for details. To be honest, I didn't care about the money at all. I was delusionally invested in building this alternative media platform, and I might have been the only one in the room still under the misguided impression that this was the real purpose of the meeting.
I wasn't thrilled about the crypto angle, but it seemed like we might be able to make something work if they were genuinely interested in contributing a few $100,000 up front. Just as I started running through the possibilities in my head, Tommy took the conversation reins again and almost instantly destroyed any shred of serious credibility I had managed to salvage with my admittedly naive but critical questions. Colin and George hadn't contributed much to the conversation at this point, but whenever they did, it would slightly bolster our social standing, not be so embarrassed. If there was one thing they were good at, especially Colin, it was being the life of the party. He was a master at big grins and inside jokes and flattery. They had both the skills for a successful business meeting, but the production talent and marketing persuasiveness. However, considering we were all a decade younger than Tommy, we were hardly the focus of any business discussions. By the time we were getting ready to leave and get into the cars, Colin and George and I had resigned ourselves that the reality of the whole thing is just a bust. We did our best, but no one with a fraction of their wits would give us access to real money, knowing it would end up snorted up Tommy's nose.
We returned to our hotel in Bucharest, feeling dejected, embarrassed, and unsure of where to go from here. It wasn't our first failure, and we knew it wouldn't be our last, but we needed to sleep and recharge before figuring out the next step. Expecting to retreat to my room and binge some Prison Break on my phone, Kaylin suddenly lit up with a completely different energy. They want to meet with you, Lauren. To be perfectly honest, I can't remember whether it was Kaylin or Tommy who got the text. It was a confusing game of telephone between different people. Maybe Tommy texted Kaylin, or maybe it was the other way around, but for some reason, I wasn't the one who got the invite directly. What? Yeah, they just reached out saying you impressed them at the meeting and the deal is still on if you're willing to meet with them before you leave tomorrow and sort out the details.
Now, if you're reading this screaming, no, Lauren, I get it. I understand now, but there's very little you could have told 22-year-old me to convince me that I didn't have a real shot at saving the day.
Oh my gosh.
Despite my imposter syndrome. Do you guys know what imposter syndrome is? It's when you know that you're in over your head, but you're presenting yourself as knowing more and being more than you are.
Sure.
And you got to live up to that.
Yep.
It's very scary. She goes, and self-doubt, flying by the seat of my pants, had generally worked up until this point, and it did for her. Maybe I really could be the key to getting this entire media company off the ground. Imagine that, me saving the day. It seemed like a meeting free from the distraction of the drugged out motor mouth might actually get somewhere. I clung to the fantasy that I could turn this into something meaningful, as if my ambition could somehow justify the risk. Now, they sent a car for me, and we headed back to the compound where the same group of men were waiting. No one was sitting at the desk. No papers, no computers were out. They were just wandering around, conversing, while I awkwardly waited for some kind of prompt to continue our discussion. I'm going to read this here. Andrew. Hey, Lauren, get over here. Andrew waved me to the couch. I want a picture with you. Tate barked it more like an order, but his sing-song tone kept it light, almost playful. But now I was used to it. Ever since my sudden rise to internet fame a few years ago, people were always asking me for pictures and to become routine. I barely thought twice about it. I sat behind him and he casually wrapped his hand around my waist and tugged me in as someone snapped the shot. I wasn't used to men grabbing me like that. Tate did it like we'd been dating for years or something. It left me feeling slightly uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. I still wonder what became of that photo. It's probably on some old phone somewhere.
This is boring. Let's go somewhere more exciting. Andrew snapped while pacing. Tristan and the others agreed. Now, I was naive, but I wasn't that much of an idiot. I asked again when we discussed business and where exactly they wanted to go. To the club. It's just around the block, and we can take the cars. It'll be fun. We'll discuss business there. At that moment, my nearly non-functional amygdala, right there, kicked in for the first time in ages, sending off alarm bells. Ding, 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 ding. Maybe Tommy knew these people, but I didn't. Climbing into some flashy sports cars with strangers bound for a Euro trash club I'd never even heard of. All the while, no one had a clue where I was. Yeah, hard pass. I looked for a way to play it cool. Hey, I'd rather not go out unless Tommy and the boys are coming too, I said, trying to keep it light. I've already texted them. We're sending a car now. Andrew replied assuredly with a twinkle in his eye. Well, my excuse was gone.
I'm sure if I really pushed, I could have demanded that they take me back to my hotel. They probably would have taken me. But I wasn't thinking clearly. I was still on autopilot, lacking a strong sense of self, easily swayed by the smallest bit of pressure. The most dangerous thing a young woman can be is a pushover. Given my own experiences, I can honestly say it's better to raise a pushy woman than a people pleaser. I imagine the same goes for men in their own way. So we got into the cars and Andrew raced through the back roads. Not long after, we pulled into the club, an all black brick building with a bouncer at the door. The luxury cars were parked out front and the low boom of bass music thudded underfoot as we walked down a narrow, dimly lit hallway to the main room. I'm sure you've seen this scene in movies before. Everything slows down. The background blurs and someone steps through a doorway into another world. You see, I turned a corner and a blue neon light flooded my vision. Stages with gorgeous women, white leather couches, and was that fireworks? Yes, it was. It was fireworks. I didn't even know what bottle service was at the time, and I don't even know what bottle service is now. Maybe somebody can Google it.
Maybe don't.
But I think it's drinks that you kindly.
I don't care. Don't Google anything you don't know.
But the whole vibe of the place was mesmerizing. I was painfully out of place, an obvious North American wearing jeans and a black shirt, surrounded by Romanian girls in club dresses.
Andrew offered to get me a drink. He snapped his fingers and waved over a serving girl, briskly ordering for both of us. Vodka soda, my usual, with lime. I was handed my drink, and just before taking a sip, I asked, any news on Tommy and the boys? Andrew turned to me, meeting my eyes with intent. They'll be here soon, don't worry. He winked. After spending time with him earlier in the day, I felt a certain warmth towards him. There was something about his energy that was calming, easy to lean into, easier still to ignore the smallest things that didn't quite sit right. People in the club kept approaching Andrew and Tristan, shaking their hands and chatting like old friends. They were clearly regulars here. I spent at least 10 minutes just trying to process my surroundings, the music blasting, the unfamiliar faces, the unspoken social cues I was clearly missing. The Tate brothers moved through it all effortlessly. Naturals in this world. While they swam with ease, I felt like I was drowning.
So she wanted to talk with Donnie here, the crypto guy. I figured I'd try to talk to Donnie, as he seemed to be the brains behind their operation, the financials at least. Honestly, I still hadn't quite figured out what the heck was going on. We exchanged some small talk and about Bitcoin, but before I could get a sense of where the conversation was heading, a tray of shots was brought over. Guys, this same thing happened with Michael Tate. He brings out the shots, and then everybody else takes one, and it's like you got to watch Princess Bride, okay? You never take a drink, never take shots with people. The brothers ushered us, all cheers to them. And while I sipped on my vodka soda, I wasn't quite ready for another drink until Tommy and the others arrived. Where's Tommy? Where are Kaylin and George? I shouted past the tray, my voice barely carrying over the pounding music. Their cars just arrived. They're on their way now, Andrew reassured me, leaning in close, his head nearly pressed to mine. His voice cut through the noise with ease, steady and sure. I studied the shot glass, and despite my hesitation, seeing the rest raise them, I joined in, and we all threw them back. I winced as the burn hit. I never really got used to drinking anything stronger than my vodka sodas. It's funny how an environment itself can make a behavior feel oddly natural. Surrounded by music and fireworks and the shimmering energy of the club, it would feel weird to decline. And that was the same thing that the Michael Tate victim said. She didn't want to drink anymore. She wanted to leave, and that Michael Tate was like, "Here, take this drink."
But this
and
is
it felt weird to decline.
It's social. So it's not like she was they had to take her to the club because they need to disorient you. They need to get you around loud music. They need to get you in an unfamiliar environment. They need to hype it up and then make it feel like you just have to go along with everybody else, because if she had just been back at his compound and he offered her a shot, she would have probably said no.
Right.
Despite only having one shot and still working on my vodka soda, I found myself feeling surprisingly intoxicated. Usually only beer hit me this quickly. I paid it no mind as I was fast distracted with conversation. Maybe it was the vibe of the club or just the fact that I was coming off as the stereotypically fun, carefree blonde. But Donnie, who'd been friendly enough as we bantered about politics and online culture, suddenly seemed to take my relaxed demeanor as a green light. Or perhaps it was the one or two edgy jokes I tossed out. Either way, his tone shifted. It was far more candid now. Yelling over the music, not yet drunk, he launched into an explanation of their entire operation, a series pump and dump crypto schemes ranking in millions. He didn't try to hide it. It was all basically illegal and something they couldn't pull off in the US. We've got the police wrapped around our fingers here, he bragged. Andrew had said almost the same thing at the compound during our initial meeting, but I'd brushed it off as some cheeky over-the-top bravado. Donnie went on, an inside guy, we can do whatever we want and they can't do blank.
He almost laughed as he said it. High on the absurdity. You guys, she just says that they admitted to doing crypto pump and dumps. It's all a con. These are so many illegal things. And even if they do come after us, we'll just shut down shop, take the money, and run to another Eastern European. Heck, I'm getting close to that point now. We'll cash out and disappear. At this moment, any hope that the night might shift toward a legitimate investment discussion had faded entirely. In fact, I was struggling just to keep my eyes open. It's very interesting because this is where it turns. Like, she realizes it's time for me to get out, but she's been drugged at this point, okay? We hadn't even been there that long, and I hadn't drunk much, but something was wrong. My body wasn't listening to me. That's what drug people say. The Michael Tate victims, like, I couldn't move my body. I couldn't move my body. My head wouldn't move. My arms wouldn't move. She said the world was dimming and I couldn't stop it. I again asked about Tommy and the others, but kept getting vague answers. They're lying to her, by the way. Somebody like, why'd you let this happen to you? Why'd you let this happen to you? The comments online are just atrocious, but you can see, where's Tommy? Where's George? Where's Kaylin? Where's my friends? They're,
she's just 22.
Yeah. Just around the corner, they said. They kept lying to her. Eventually, I found myself crawling onto a couch at the back of the club, my eyelids fluttering closed. Now, here's the question. George and Kaylin texted her and said, Tommy wants to meet with you. Why didn't
you mean Andrew?
Andrew wants to meet with you. Why didn't they go with her?
Yeah.
Why didn't they go with her? Why didn't they be like, hey, we're all going to go back. We know Tommy's acting weird, but no, they just want to meet with just you, Lauren. They didn't think it was weird? I found myself crawling onto a couch at the back of the club, my eyelids fluttering closed. Blue layers and neon lights danced behind them, dragging me in and out of consciousness, pulsing to the relentless hum of the heavy bass. I thought I felt a girl shake my shoulder, asking if I was okay. Honestly, I didn't care about anything except keeping my head in a comfortable spot on the white faux leather couch. Time lost all meaning. I couldn't tell if it was 10 minutes or an hour had passed. And Tommy and the boys, they never showed up. As far as I know now, a car was never sent for them.
The memories after that blur together. I remember someone carrying me to the bathroom, standing outside the hall while I threw up. The nausea was overwhelming, and I think I might have fallen asleep hugging the toilet for a while. Then Andrew was there again, lifting me up and carrying me through the dim hallway, my feet barely touching the ground, the bass of the music still shaking my body. I felt the cool night air hit my skin as the door to the sports car opened in front of me. A stupid Bugatti, I'm sure.
Chapter 11, Confessions. It was kind of my fault. I can trace every moment I had the opportunity to turn things around, right up until the point where everything went wrong. The truth is, I could have said no at that strange business meeting overseas, at least until I had more information. I could have refused to go to the club until my friends were with me. I could have turned down the drinks. With whatever little sense I had left, I could have said no to what I foolishly thought was a harmless cuddle when I had no intention of going any further. But honestly, I'm not sure it would have mattered at that point. That this wasn't a case of mixed signals or intoxicated, blurred lines. I fought back. I was pleading. I just didn't realize there was a point of no return, a moment where my voice would no longer have any power. She says, I'd rather not give a detailed account, so I'm going to keep this simple. He carried me back to the hotel room, and he asked me to sleep beside him, and I said yes. I was incredibly intoxicated, and some part of me convinced myself that because he was Tommy's friend, he wasn't particularly dangerous. It was a poor decision, but it happened. She says he kissed her, and she says I wasn't expecting it, and I wasn't looking for it, but she said I did kiss him back briefly, and then I told him I wanted to sleep. I was extraordinarily tired. He wanted to go further. I said no, very clearly, multiple times, and tried to pull his hands off of me. He put his arm, and this is the big part of this whole story. He put his arm around my neck and began strangling me unconscious. This is not a story that I'm just going to read. Okay? At this point, we have to talk about what was happening. He put his arm around her neck and began strangling her. And what I'm going to do at this point, Michelle, is I have up a Twitter, in my Twitter feed here. I want you to play, I think it's up.
Well, I can play the clip that I
right
used
here.
in mine.
Nathan Livingstone, Milk Bar TV. Nathan, Milk Bar TV has been exposing Andrew Tate for years, and he says Lauren Southern has alleged that Andrew Tate strangled, and alludes to.
Are you saying you have it up?
It's look in my feed. It's there somewhere. Alludes to raping her. This now makes 9 women that have accused Andrew Tate of strangling them, dating back to 2013. So this happened to her in 2018, and now we're going to play a few of these other women.
Choke her so she can barely fucking breathe. Tell her she's
sorry about the curse words.
The Romanian prosecutors say they have testimony from a woman who alleges she was strangled by Andrew Tate during sex.
That was when he put his hands around my throat.
And then he grabbed me by my neck. He was strangling me like so hard. I couldn't breathe.
Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't pass out.
Choke her so she can barely fucking breathe.
Okay, so there's the next one. Scroll down. No, you have to click on it. Yeah.
13. Anna says she started going out with Andrew Tate. After a few dates, she says she went to his house.
I went up the stairs with him to the bedroom. He started kissing me on the bed, and then he just looked up at the ceiling, and I remember thinking, this is weird. Yeah, and he said, I'm just debating whether I should rape you or not. Out of the blue, he just got up, grabbed me by the throat, smashed me to the back of the bed, strangling me extremely hard. And he's telling me to take my trousers off, and I'm like refusing. And I'm like, no, Andrew, you said you wouldn't. And he's getting more and more angry at me, strangling me, hurling abuse at me, threatening me.
Afterwards, Anna says Andrew Tate sent her text messages and voice notes about rape and sexual violence.
Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't pass out. Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Why am I like that? Why?
Okay, a couple more.
I can't believe Candace Owens defends this guy. Like,
and Tucker.
He was working as a doorman in a nightclub. He just said after his shift, he would come over to mine, and then we could see each other again. He came over, and that was when the incident happened. We were having sex, and he put his hands around my throat and started strangling me, kind of like crushing my windpipe, until I lost consciousness. And then when I came back round again, it was just really, like, just confusion. He was still having sex with me. Don't know how long I was kind of like knocked out for, but yeah, I completely lost consciousness, which I assume he knew because I probably would have been like limp and stuff. I just forgot even where I was and like who he was and what was going on. I just laid there completely still because I was quite scared that he was going to do it again, and yeah, maybe I like wouldn't wake up the second time he did it. There's this like manic look in his eyes, like dark and angry.
Demonic.
He said that he was going to kill me, told me that he owned me, and he'd like pin me up against the wall. And then he left, and that was the last time I saw him.
So 9 women now out in the open accusing him of rape and
strangulation.
Strangulation. So this is what happened to her. He put his arm around my neck and began strangling me unconscious. I tried to fight back. He repeatedly strangled me every time I regained enough consciousness to pull at his arms. He strangled her unconscious. I don't know how any of these women didn't die, but you know what? Maybe some of them did. Maybe some of them did.
Oh, I can guarantee you.
Because Andrew Tate's girlfriend is on video saying, yeah, I've seen girls die, and maybe that's why some of them are afraid of being strangled. I'd prefer not to share the rest. So she doesn't go into details on the actual rape, but it did happen. I've mentioned it before, but I'm once again reminded of how deeply I used to believe that naive, almost cartoonish version of life where I was the main character, nothing truly bad could happen, and danger didn't exist as long as you played it smart. I held onto a teenage, radical, anti-feminist idea that men weren't a real threat unless you let them be one. I'd had experience before where I set boundaries and they were respected, where a night ended with a cuddle, maybe a kiss, and that was it. No pressure, no problem. Once or twice, I'd even crashed in a male friend's hotel room or at their house after drinking without the slightest concern they'd try anything. The next morning, it was just, good morning, hope you're feeling better. You can go on.
I'm not saying these were good decisions, and I'm incredibly militant now about never putting myself in a position like that again, but that was my lived experience. I believed I could take all the risks I wanted and still be fine. I didn't know how to cope with that belief shattered. When I finally faced the real consequences of taking those risks, it broke me psychologically. I cycled through different forms of denial. It's taken me years to even begin to process it clearly and to take full responsibility for my own behavior. It's easier to convince ourselves that evil completely ensnares us without any willingness on our part, but evil isn't always the obvious stuff. It's the small decisions we make that put us in compromising positions. I heard this anecdote once that the devil doesn't just leap out at anybody. He whispers, urging us to step a little closer to the fence, to come and see what he's doing, to lower our defenses, have a drink and not think too much. We indulge, we take a step forward, and he tells us small lies, how all our friends will be soon at the fence, curious too. He reassures us that it's safe to sit on the fence between him and God, to get a better view of what he's offering without making any real decisions. But then in a final moment, you feel claws around your arm, dragging you, screaming, while the devil smiles and tells you the fence always belonged to him.
That's so good.
That's really good.
And
really
that's
good,
why I'm doing this. That paragraph is why I'm doing this tonight. Because Lauren Southern comes across as a narcissist, okay? She comes across as the world is about her, that she's amazing,
and she admits that she did feel that way.
And so the fact that this is not necessarily a confession. Why she's getting this out here is not like to absolve herself. It's to put credence, she says, to the other girls' testimonies. She knows that she has the biggest name in this game. And her story now puts a linchpin in all the cases against Andrew Tate. People can say what they want about her bad decisions, but I just want to be clear. She just met this guy that day. I don't care who you are. I've seen some things on Twitter that says if you go and you allow a man to sleep next to you in a bed, you give them permission to have sex with you.
Let's also remember that she was drugged at this point.
But here's the thing. Have we not all seen the movies where there's no hotel room left and a man and a woman have to be in the same room?
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this as a comment and I said, even perfectly sober people, if you end up in a room together, male and female, the romantic comedy, the rom-coms, they wake up the next day and he's making eggs. She's passed out. Maybe she got drunk, right? And the guy has to bring her in and set her somewhere, right? And she's making eggs for her the next day. That's the rom-com. But that's not what happens here. And that's not what usually happens. The horror movies are the girl gets drunk. Even if she gets drunk on her own, even without being drugged, she's still incapacitated. And even in one of the woman's cases, she was having these relations with Andrew, and he's trying to kill her. He's strangling her, right? So in no case does being alone in a room with a man mean that you're going to have sex with them. And for people to say you're giving him an opportunity, if you kiss a man, that just means that you're going to have sex. And here's the thing. I just want to be obvious here, and I don't want to go into gory details, but those kinds of relations happen mutually. And when somebody is saying no, 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 and the other person has their hands around your neck, that is a violent crime. And I've seen so many people online who didn't read the story saying,
hang on.
Saying, well, she should have never put herself in that position. Wait! She was set up from the get-go.
Stop. Full stop. Because now I'm getting angry at these people. And I mean that genuinely. Whoever these lowlives are that are commenting against Lauren Southern, okay? You and I have standards.
Mm-hmm.
Christians have standards. The world does not have standards. And every movie in Hollywood out there should show you that the world does not have standards. And as far as the world is concerned, it is not only perfectly fine, but it is perfectly acceptable for a girl to go back to a guy's apartment and go to first, second, or third base. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's acceptable to go all the way to home run, whatever. That's fine. You're allowed to do that as far as the world is concerned. And these people giving Lauren Southern a hard time, how many times have they gone back to somebody's hotel? How many times have they gone back to somebody's house? And everybody knows that when you are having a consensual relationship, you only go as far as is consenting. So for them to say that she never should have put herself in a situation that these people have probably put themselves into 100 times is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I can say it from a Christian standpoint. You don't put yourself in that kind of situation, but the world is the pot calling the kettle black when the world wants to look at Lauren Southern and say, how dare you put yourself in a situation that they encourage through all of their music, through all of their movies, and they make it funny and they make it laughable and it's always safe. Like, this is infuriating to me. And then they look at the Christians who are the sidelines that say, hey, you know what? We don't do those kinds of things. You don't put yourself in that kind of position. You don't go to first base. You don't go to second base. And then we're all of a sudden, we're the big giant prudes. We're the big, oh, you've just poured water and dampened everything down. And then we're literally told it's impractical. You can't tell kids to save themselves for marriage. You can't tell kids not to go all the way. You can't tell kids all this because they're just going to do it. Excuse me? If you can't, this is absolutely ridiculous.
You can scream all you want about how you never wanted to go along. You can fight back in vain, but deep down, a part of you allowed yourself to get wrapped up in the lies. You drink the wine he offers. You let yourself get that close. You don't have discernment. Don't get vulnerable with the devil if you don't want to end up in hell.
She says, I mean, really? I suppose I can't entirely, you can keep going.
Yeah, I was kind of staying there on that.
Okay.
Don't get vulnerable with the devil if you don't want to end up in hell. I suppose I can't entirely fault conservative media for turning Andrew Tate into a hero, though for a while I certainly did. He's not a fool, despite the persona he crafts online. There's a depth to him, a sharp social intelligence that in another life might have been a force for good. It's true shame. You can catch glimpses of that potential in his messages urging men to better themselves. But in the end, even those moments are not separate from the larger arc of his influence. They too are absorbed into a worldview where power is the only currency and dominance, not character, defines a man's worth. My frustration grew over time, though, as more and more evidence came to light about this man's operations. You see, she didn't know anything about this guy. At least when I met him, I had no idea. My comfortable state of denial was being involuntarily shuttered every day. Videos and messages surfaced of Tate discussing grooming underage girls, manipulating and lying to put women in horrific situations, and scamming men out of their life savings. As I write this, he's still under house arrest for alleged sex trafficking and exploitation, including repeated sexual relations and acts with a 15-year-old. Frankly, you didn't need my story to see the direction it all pointed. You could just listen to what the man himself was saying. I understand the concept of radical responsibility. Well, women have freedom now. They can make choices that put them in danger or compromise them. Oh, well, you asked for this, ladies. Fine, so be it. Blame the women. What I don't understand is how the right-wing media in particular could make a hero of this man after all the evidence of his character has been released. Conservatives, even just 100 years ago, would have strung up people in the streets for less than what Tate brothers had do on any given weekend. Men then understood that part of building a strong society is protecting people, especially young women, from predators and pimps, a self-professed pimp. Instead, we got a bunch of self-proclaimed conservative men who would rather drag themselves naked across broken glass for a chance to serve up softball interviews with a man who is facing nearly 3 times as many charges as Hunter Biden ever did, each of them far more serious. Can you imagine if a Democrat had said even a fraction of what was stated in his Hustler University videos? We've got a library damning Tate footage. Epstein never even gave us that much to work with. Tate literally admitted to moving to Romania because it was easier to get away with crimes.
When it comes to conservative media's reaction, it was willful ignorance in pursuit of fame and money. Nothing short of that. A lot of people received a lot of money and attention to pick a side and cover up what they certainly knew to be morally rotten behavior, if not significant criminality. Oh, don't forget the fear. A lot of influencers had been to that compound. A lot of people with high public profiles had been involved in that business. I didn't even realize how bad things were, how deep the rot went in the media space at this point. No matter, I had no intentions of getting into it. How embarrassing was it that I even ended up in that situation in the first place? Who was I to blame conservative media figures for lionizing Tate when I had my own failures as a self-proclaimed conservative media figure under my own belt? Not to mention, I'm sure I conducted a few softball interviews of my own. In my first draft of this section, I just brushed over this entire experience. Of course, the same thing I did all of those years ago. It didn't happen, I told myself.
In fact, Andrew and I were on great terms. We were still talking over WhatsApp, and he was asking me to visit. I had no intention of allowing that to occur, but I humored him to preserve my own sanity or maybe further my own delusions. I wasn't sure. In the end, I think it's more of a Stockholm syndrome. I thought it didn't matter. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let myself care about it too deeply, so I acted like I didn't. Cognitive dissonance makes people normalize the absurd, as if mentally reclassifying the event afterward can restore some sort of illusion of control. The last conversation we had in person consisted of Andrew telling me I better not tell the press what he'd done as I packed my bags to rush out of my hotel room. I told him not to worry. I was the girl against feminism after all. I couldn't be doing that. I'd spent so long fighting the idea of victimhood on ideological grounds that of course I would ignore my own on those same grounds. It wouldn't be very helpful to the cause, or my career for that matter, for me to become exactly what I criticized. A victim. Worse, a woman. A victim of a man. One who literally did everything wrong. Why was I out drinking in this strange country with strange men? What did I expect?
I didn't allow myself to consider that there would be others after me. If I did, I figured they made stupid decisions the same as I did. I certainly never imagined the minds of an entire generation would be assaulted by Tate, not just dozens of women. I can't help but wonder if there was a moment when I could have been more honest, more direct about the forces that would later shape the psyche of millions. Maybe it wouldn't have changed anything, but maybe it would have made a difference to someone, given a few people a reason to pause, to think twice. Instead, I told him his secret was safe with me. What was one more secret in this world of politics anyway? It took a few weeks before my denial was slowly replaced by a small but persistent sense of guilt. Guilt that I was setting up others for failure. Even if I could take responsibility for my own mistakes, I knew his actions weren't mistakes. They were calculated and intentional. I finally cracked and texted him, breaking the act, stating what he did was wrong, and at the very least, he needed to understand that so he wouldn't treat others the same way. Of course, I knew he already knew this, but I also felt certain I would never go to court. I didn't believe in punishing anyone over such a serious accusation without overwhelming evidence. I wouldn't have believed another woman who made these same exact set of claims. In fact, I would have torn myself apart. I wouldn't have been able to survive my own scrutiny. I made too many decisions that indicated, at the very least, reckless irresponsibility.
As for holding him to account publicly, good joke. I already knew how that would go. Whether a crime had been committed would be a secondary concern. The real question would be whether I was the kind of person who deserved my fate. Every failed relationship, every poor decision, every moment of bad judgment would be dissected under a microscope. For Tate, hiring a PR firm and weaponizing other influencers, especially those whose reputations are tied to yours, to discredit potential claimants is just the cost of doing business. Best case, my story gets hijacked by some slick HBO showrunner with a savior complex, repackaged into a glossy docudrama where the women are written as if they've got no internal monologue, idiots, victims of hyper-captivating men. The outcome was painfully obvious, especially with the amount of money and blackmail at play. People get killed over this sort of stuff, and I'd been privy to conversations with powerful people that implied as much. My brief confrontation was less about justice and more about easing my own guilt. The guilt of knowing I was embarrassed by my own behavior in the situation, and that, given the choice, I would absolutely stay silent for the sake of the cause. Perhaps even more so to preserve my own sense of control, to avoid the reputational bloodbath I feared. I guess this is the real world, I told myself, and I'd be darned before I admitted I hadn't been prepared for it.
Andrew eventually apologized for, quote, making me think badly of him, as he put it, but the apology only came after a barrage of anger and veiled threats. He reminded me that I had consented to cuddling, that he'd been drunk too, as if those facts nullified everything that came after. I told him plainly that I had said no, clearly and repeatedly, that he'd gotten violent in response. He told me to go to the police. I laughed and reminded him of his own words, that the police were already paid off. I wasn't reaching out to seek justice or vengeance. I just wanted him to understand I wouldn't be complicit in his delusion that what he'd done was okay. I thanked him for the apology and cut off contact. He reached out again and offered to bring flowers. I still didn't reply. I know this is going to sound weird, but I do think he meant his apology, or at least hoped it would entice me to begin speaking with him again. Either way, it wasn't the closure I had hoped for. I didn't expect any, though.
It's now 7 years later. I don't hate Andrew. I know that may sound strange, especially in the contrast to the things I've expressed on these pages, but it's complex. He's still human. When he apologized to me, he admitted he doesn't have much of a conscience, but if it's still there, I hope he wrestles with it. I hope one day it wins. I hope he becomes the soul he could have been instead of the one consumed by his vices, whether behind bars or free. I don't think he even realizes he's been consumed. Like so many in his position, he's likely never let himself dig that deep because there's too much pain waiting there. I believe change is possible. I absolutely believe in redemption for Andrew Tate.
We'll get to that at the end of the show.
But understanding why people do what they do and hoping for their greatest spiritual good doesn't mean they shouldn't be stopped. especially when they've lost themselves so completely that they leave destruction in their wake. I have forgiven him, truly, but that doesn't mean he should be free to keep hurting, tormenting, and scamming others. If I ever lost myself to that degree, and there have been moments where those paths felt dangerously close, I'd hope there would be people willing to stand up to me.
Additional note upon completion of this manuscript. I finally decided to leave in this section of the book. At first I wrote it just to process my, this section of the book. I at first wrote it just to process my own emotions, convincing myself no one would ever read it. For a while, I thought about replacing parts with dramatized anonymized, how would you say that? Anonymous scenes to avoid drawing too much attention. But after a lot of reflection, I've realized I'm done with cowardice. If I'm going to do an honest book, I'll do it right. And this is a big part of my story. Why now, though? It's a very valid question. I know how people think. Oh, you're deciding to tell this story in your book to make sales? What about the legal cases? Can't believe you didn't help earlier. I should start by debunking some misconceptions here. First, I will be releasing all the chapters relevant to Tate for free. It's not about money, and frankly, I'd rather not give people another excuse to project their own twisted motivations onto me. Not that I'm too worried about the opinions of anyone who thinks human trafficking and scamming men out of their life savings is some kind of noble vocation.
Secondly, I've always believed that these matters should be handled by the legal system whenever possible, rather than turn into a public spectacle. As I mentioned earlier, I had no desire to put my face on any public claims at first. Instead, I oscillated between denial and my own harsh judgments of women who've come forward with similar accusations. Why didn't you go to the police? That would be the right thing to do. Why didn't you go to the hospital? That would be the right thing to do. Ironically, my extreme judgment of others pushed me to make some of the right choices early on. I embraced denial, but deep down, I knew what really happened. I reluctantly reached out to the UK authorities the next day, feeling it was the right thing to do, only to be met with indifference. They told me an investigation could only be pursued in Romania, a country where I had been explicitly warned about police corruption. I went deeper into a dissociative state as a result, feeling certain that there would never be a resolution. Attempts to involve Canadian authorities later led to similar dead ends. While I'm sure plenty would like to claim the investigation into Tate is a deep state operation, if anything, the state didn't help at all. They honestly didn't seem to care.
I wasn't looking to start a legal battle. I was just looking for any interest at all in helping me make sense of what was going on in Tate's compound in a way that would keep me anonymous. Years passed before Tate's antics made it onto the radar of Western authorities due to repeated claims from other women that had nothing to do with me. Eventually, a larger U.S. investigation reached out for my assistance, and I provided what information I could off the record. I did everything possible while trying to maintain my anonymity, but for the most part, I buried it until I began writing this. Being a witness in any official capacity would have required revealing my identity, something I wanted to avoid at all costs. Still, over the years, public exposure started to feel inevitable. Someone I once naively trusted shared parts of my story with journalists without my consent. That disclosure resulted in others posting distorted versions of events online or in published works for political activism purposes, clearly with no real concern about the potential crimes happening or whether I wanted my story public or not.
I truly believe that's Milo. At one point, even Tommy, worried about his own connection to the situation, put out a video trying to get ahead of the story circulating online by preemptively claiming I would make false accusations. He recently did this again just before the publication of this book, completely lying about the events that occurred. You'll read more about that later. Ironically, I was the last person on earth who wanted to talk about it, but everyone else, including those who wanted me to remain silent, kept forcing the situation into the spotlight. The more they did, the more journalists showed up in my inbox prying for a statement I never wanted to give. If my silence over the past 7 years hasn't made it clear enough, the last thing I wanted is attention for this. I have an entire archive of replies to those reporters telling them to blank off and leave me alone. Regardless, it's always felt like only a matter of time whether I choose to tell the story myself or leave it to journalists, activists, and paid smear campaigns to do it for me. I'd much rather tell my own story with all its flaws than let a wave of outsiders who have no real understanding of what actually happened shape the narrative in my place.
Of course, there will still be plenty of commentary from old colleagues eager to highlight my character flaws, some true, some not, to muddy the waters. It will be interesting, though, to watch them contend with a simple fact. I have made only 2 accusations of assault to authorities in my entire life. One was in Australia, where the handsy man was promptly arrested and jailed after CCTV and his serial offense record confirmed my account. The other being Andrew Tate, who, despite my silence years later, became infamous for alleged allegations of human trafficking and sexual assault. Equally hard to pass off as mere coincidence is the fact that I went to a woman's hospital and had a report made around a week after the event. The report documented my account of asphyxiation 5 years before Vice News would report in 2023 that Tate used the same method on other victims in the UK in 2015. If this were some elaborate ploy for attention, I'd have to be a clairvoyant to have predicted the rise of this man's profile and his methods before anyone even knew who he was.
Not that anyone wants this kind of attention. No one wants to be a victim, especially not when you come from my political background. I know exactly what's coming. I'll be crucified online. I'm not looking for sympathy. I don't expect a victim trophy from any side. I'm publishing this simply because it's the truth, and far too people are telling the truth these days. And here's another sad truth about the political world. It's absolutely not just women falling victim to sexual violence. Young men are preyed upon too, often in the same spaces, often with the same devastating silence. The social stigma of shame that keeps women quiet also keeps men from speaking out, sometimes even more intensely. It reminds me of the case of serial rapist Renard Signa in the UK, who assaulted at least 136 men. He was so difficult to catch because most of his victims were made silent, even when police presented them with recorded video evidence of their assaults. Many still denied that it happened. I understand. I really do.
This culture needs to change for both men and women, and that change shouldn't be a politically partisan issue. I don't have all the answers, but I do know it won't happen by reducing the conversation to slogans like "believe all X" or by reflexively dismissing people as liars seeking attention. Personally, I prefer handling matters privately and through legal channels, but as I hope you understand, perhaps even more so after reading this book in its entirety, that was never truly an option for me and isn't for everyone. Sometimes the only solace people find is in telling their story.
Is that the dog?
It is.
Chapter 12, Nowhere Land. And so there's a few paragraphs in this chapter. I had told him, Tommy, and the boys what happened almost immediately after getting into the cab to the airport. Andrew walked me to the hotel exit where Tommy, Colin, and George were waiting in the car, gave me a hug, and as soon as the taxi door slammed shut behind me, I blurted it out. I said in a weird maniac laughter, "You won't believe what the blank happened," kind of way, but I was darn clear. The boys laughed too until Tommy looked at me and said, "Are you serious, mate?" I said, "Yeah," and I got into the darker details. The laugh lingered for a beat, like they were waiting for the psych, waiting for the punchline that never came. We Googled Tate on the flight home, curious to learn more about who he really was. Apparently, he'd had a brief brush with fame on Big Brother before being removed from the house after a video surfaced showing him hitting a woman with a belt. The more I scrolled, the more foolish I felt for having ended up in this situation. But by that point, it didn't matter. It was just one more absurdity in a world full of them. Another drop in the pan of chaos we were all too used to. Chapter 18, Retirement Party. Opening about personal life has been cut. You may recognize some of the content from a video, which I ironically called The Whole Truth, in which I attempted to address some of the drama without mentioning anything regarding the Tate incident. I was married, pregnant, and my borderless documentary was about to be published. Naturally, my husband wanted me to visit his family in Australia to share the exciting news. The only issue was that since my last trip there, the one where we first met, the Australian government had added me to what's called the VACCU. Essentially, it's a flag on your passport for, quote, character reasons, typically reserved for people convicted of criminal activities, those involved in terrorism, or apparently politically incorrect YouTubers. In early of 2019, I applied for a general visitor visa only to be rejected. Even if we settled in Canada, Australia was still part of my husband's life that he couldn't let go of. I knew I had to find a way in. For months, I sent inquiries and called government helplines, but got nowhere. My husband visited home a few times, but I had to stay behind, pregnant, emotional, and increasingly isolated. I was less active online, and I hoped that would help my case, but I wasn't ready to leave public life completely. Maybe I'd still write the occasional article or return to filmmaking once my son and hopefully more children were older. The rejections wore me down. Being separated from my husband during such a vulnerable time made the stakes feel heavier. With each passing month, it became increasingly clear, as long as I maintained a media presence, the door to Australia would remain shut.
I eventually chose to step away from public life entirely. After Borderless was released, I published a retirement article and sent it along with a new visa request to the government. Their response confirmed I still failed the, quote, character test due to my previous conduct and content that may have incited discord. But my retirement had worked. They explicitly cited it, along with the personal nature of the visit, as the reason my application wouldn't be refused. It was clear stepping away from politics wasn't just a choice, it was the cost of entry. The message ended with a chilling warning. Any future controversy could result in a ban, and this note on my record would count heavily against me. So in the end, it wasn't conviction or burnout that ended my career. It was a government mandate. I always believed Western democracies respected free speech, even when the views expressed were provocative or unpopular. Mine certainly were, but I never imagined they'd be grounds for exile. It was a slow, disorienting unraveling of everything I thought I understood about the free world. The notion that only authoritarian regimes punished dissent no longer held. I came to see that power protects itself. No matter the flag it flies. The quote, good guys I believed in as a child were just stories we told ourselves. And once I let go of that illusion, the sting of losing my political voice began to fade.
Outside the ruins of that world, I was finally building something real. But just as I was preparing to publish my retirement letter and wrap up Borderless, the ghost of that old world came knocking. One of them was Milo Yiannopoulos, a previous colleague known as much for controversy as for commentary. He began sending me strange messages. Apparently, he had gotten into some dispute with my former film crew, Colin and George, who had since moved on to work with other high-profile figures like Alex Jones. They knew I was stepping away and had wished me well. I had little idea what Colin and George had been up to since we filmed Borderless the year before, but Milo was working on some kind of expose about them, and he wanted me in the middle of it. It was exactly the kind of drama I was trying to leave behind. Like, Australia be happy about that. These so-called investigations rarely had anything to do with real political reform. More often, they were just personal grudges or enemy-financed hit jobs dressed up as journalism.
Hit pieces and public cancellations never tell the whole story. In this climate, false accusations blur the lines so much that real predators can hide in plain sight, while decent people often get destroyed, not because they're guilty, but because they're bad at the game. I told Milo as much, explaining my decision to leave politics and the complications surrounding my visa. He remained polite, but there was an unmistakable undercurrent of menace in his tone that I didn't appreciate. He already wasn't impressed with me for declining to do a tour of Australia with him, and I was somewhat concerned he was the kind of guy who didn't take rejection well.
She wasn't allowed. Once I published my resignation article in the summer of 2019, it wasn't long before Milo published an article of his own. To my surprise, it seemed to focus as much on my reputation as it did on my videographers. Maybe even more so, given how much it was based on fabrications about my life. He claimed that I had been a secret leftist all along, working to dismantle the right wing throughout my entire career, citing absurd evidence like me allegedly professing love for AOC in private and collaborating with Antifa-adjacent activists. Well, he got me on that point. She says she's hot. What can I say? As for my support of Antifa, Milo included a short secret recording that Tommy Robinson had made of me, in which I admit to meeting with a far-left pressure group called Hope Not Hate. Of course, the clip conveniently left out the fact that I was trying to meet with them secretly to record the group, James O'Keefe style. The meeting was uneventful and the audio was unusable. Tommy already knew the story. Then out of the blue, he called me one day asking me to repeat it. It got so strange, I kept asking if he was recording the call. He swore he wouldn't do something like that.
Not long after I heard that very call, heavily edited without any context, playing in a documentary he made. Poetic irony. I attempt to make my undercover debut, and instead I end up with a cameo in someone else's propaganda film. Lesson learned. I should have laughed it off. The more time I spend outside the political world, the more embarrassed I am by how seriously I once took these allegations. It's not even that they were unfounded, though they were. It's the whole thing feels so childish, a secret leftist, as if we all don't have at least one at the dinner table on holidays. Who cares if I were? What does that even mean? Are we still in high school? Why are any of us even talking like this? Yet back then I did care, and it was devastating. What stung my ego the most was Milo's claim that I had never written my own content. He alleged I traded sex for video ideas and scripts to climb the political ladder. A classic trope against women in politics and media. Almost poetic, giving my past criticisms of feminism a cosmic joke at my expense. Of course, it had to unfold this way. The accusation was so ridiculous, it should have been obvious to anyone with a shred of common sense. No one needs to sleep with someone for ghost-written content, especially when most of my work consisted of man-on-the-street videos. The whole nation was bafflingly stupid.
The whole notion.
The whole notion.
I've been clear. I was no trad saint. If that had been the allegation, fair enough. But I wasn't guilty of what Milo claimed. And if it was scandal he was after, I was hardly the best target. Plenty of my male peers in the dissident space were hiring escorts, cheating, using drugs, even committing crimes. It didn't escape me that many of the loudest amplifiers of his article were the ones most guilty of that behavior, and not coincidentally, men I'd rejected either romantically or professionally. And yes, I can already hear the winging. Feminist this, feminist that. I didn't flinch when people called me a racist for suggesting immigration rates might be a tad too high, and I'm certainly not losing sleep over being called a feminist or pointing out the glaring hypocrisy in right-wing media around gender. You can see it in the podcasts that dominate right-wing spaces, panels of men dragging in groups of only fangirls, shaming and humiliating them for their sexual past, pretending they represent modern womanhood. There's no female equivalent on the right. No podcast where men are lined up and held accountable for their own sexual behavior or being the main drivers of OnlyFans. Could you imagine if like we had a podcast where we just brought in men and ridiculed them for being sexually perverts? Because that's what they do on that.
Oh, I don't know that everybody knows what you're talking about.
There's, well, if you're on Twitter, then you do. I'm sorry if you're not. I don't go into that. Instead, you get endless monologues from self-styled truth tellers insisting that men are supposed to sleep around while women must remain chaste, as if that's not completely antithetical to the conservative, religious, and family values that the space generally claims to champion.
And that's just what played out in public. Behind the scenes, the culture shaped by those beliefs was a mess. The same men building platforms to shame women for having sex outside of marriage were often the ones most aggressively trying to sleep with them. It was a rigged game. If a woman said yes, she was proof women had no virtue. If she said no, they'd sulk, badmouth her, and quietly blacklist her. I saw this cycle play out constantly in my life and in the lives of women around me. It would have been funny if it weren't so bleak. Everyone involved seemed trapped in a warped, self-defeating performance. Honestly, at least Andrew Tate was publicly shameless about being a pimp and embracing double standards. It's a more honest take than pretending any of this was about morals. Even beyond the podcast circuit, in the more polished professional world, there's no female equivalent to someone like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. A woman with endless baby daddies would never be taken seriously within the Republican Party. When you build a system where men are granted limitless moral indulgences while women face social destruction for far less, you don't create a culture of virtue, you create a culture of madness. It's gaslighting at an industrial scale. And the truth is, you couldn't even fix it by making the standards go both ways, because there were never any real standards to begin with, just pharisaical sneering dressed up as moral clarity.
This was the world I operated in for a decade. It made me worse at relationships, not better. Had I followed the examples my savior of the Western world peers set, I may have actually become the caricature Milo spun of me, using people for their bodies, treating intimacy like a transaction. But even at the height of my career, I was still a romantic at heart, looking for a life partner. I made my dating mistakes the way our ancestors intended, awkwardly, emotionally, and without a single app or ghostwriting agreement in sight. Still, I somehow became a lightning rod for internet morality panic. A friend joked that I should get a shirt like the one from the movie Easy A. It felt fitting. Only in this version, it wasn't high school rumors spread by teenagers. It was a middle-aged man pounding out an 11,000-word think piece about my dating life like Watergate. At the end of the day, I'm human. I enjoyed a good relationship as much as the next person. I made poor choices that sometimes led to heartbreak. But Milo's accusations weren't rooted in reality. They were projections. Ironically, I think they mostly came because I was trying to walk away from the very people who I'd followed away from the healthier paths. I'd seen behind the curtain, participated to a degree, and then decided it wasn't for me. I wanted out. I wanted to heal, to clear my head, and to see if I could still build something real, a family. But walking away isn't easy when people know what you've seen. The darker side of that dissident world doesn't like loose ends. You don't get to dip a toe in, then pull back. Oops, don't really like that, but don't worry, I won't tell anyone what y'all are up to. That made me both a complicit coward and a threat, the worst possible place to be, and exactly why I was hit with a reputational nuke.
At first, most dismissed the article as nonsense, but as I stayed silent, even skeptics started to believe it. I had my reasons, my visa, but I couldn't share them. The traction was faster than I expected. Thousands upon thousands of Twitter notifications sharing the article, spreading like wildfire. It felt orchestrated, like someone was pulling the strings. In the piece, Milo pointed to various men who claimed I had sexually taken advantage of them for business purposes. Of course, he never named any of these men. While I knew the story was false, I struggled to determine how many were entirely fabricated versus how many were just guys in the space nursing a rejection wound or a personal gripe. Eventually, a friend tipped me off. Andrew Tate had been circulating the story in his private group, The War Room. a collection of men who were paid to promote and amplify his content. He had openly and proudly told them regarding the men on record with Milo, everyone in the space knows it was me. Secret's out. Oh, well. Andrew would say it just like that. He also shared a chat with another content creator who was apparently involved in the piece, Paul Joseph Watson. In the conversation, Tate sent a voice note that appeared to outline some sort of strategy. Watson responded seemingly in agreement. Sounds like a plan. I later discovered that just before Milo's article dropped, Watson shared my retirement announcement on his Telegram, writing, "What type of young woman with a huge audience of male incels jerking off with one hand," I can't read that,
and throwing money at her with the other,
"is going to retire? We all know the market value of women in media only decreases as they get older. Some would say she's retiring for the sake of marriage and having kids. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy it. If I were a cynical person, I'd say something sinister is about to come out that will shock the conservative world, and this, quote, retirement is a manufactured exit to avoid something embarrassing and dirty. I wouldn't put it past a woman who falsely accused me of rape to lie about why she's, quote, retiring." I was baffled. I had never made any accusation of this sort against Watson. It was a pure fabrication. And in reality, I was retiring for the sake of family and children. Paul, along with other associates of Tate, immediately amplified the article as soon as it was released. Later, despite offering his initial condolences, Tommy Robinson would even make his own video claiming a woman he knew was going to make false allegations, including falsely stating I traveled back to Romania to see Tate again. He lied about many things, both directly and by omission. Not once did he mention the very first words I said to him in the cab the next morning. I was devastated. He could have simply claimed ignorance about what happened that night. Instead, he chose to actively lie.
For a long time, I tried to understand why. What could possibly motivate someone to do something like that? As far as I remember, the last time I saw Tommy was in a hotel hallway after we finished an interview about my UK band. He was chasing me down the corridor, urging me to come back to his room to do some cocaine. I had no interest in returning to the spiral that began when he first introduced it to me at the club in the UK. I said I wouldn't be going down that road again. I walked away. I can only assume that encounter has something to do with his animosity towards me now. But perhaps it wasn't just personal bitterness. Maybe it was something worse, self-preservation. After all, what kind of damage would it do to Tommy's brand, built on exposing Muslim grooming gangs? And this is what is most important, and I believe this now. I believe this. If it ever came to light that he once brought a young woman to a compound run by a self-professed Muslim pimp while high out of his mind, and she was assaulted on that very trip. In his mind, maybe protecting his image meant making me the problem. And maybe, like so many others in that world, he told himself whatever story he needed to feel like the good guy. While the public assumed the only reason these men turned on me was the accusations must be true, I saw their motivations clearly. A message was being sent to me, and a narrative was being carefully crafted, one with a clear objective. Lauren is not trustworthy. Lauren uses men for sex. Lauren falsely accuses men of rape. The reason she retired is because it's all true. And there was one man who stood to benefit most from this smear campaign, the same man openly bragging about his role in Milo's piece, Andrew Tate. Worse, the eventual war room leaks I received from a friend suggested that the entire Romanian business meeting was likely a setup. In the leaked messages, Tate laughed with war room members about the idea that any real investment plan had ever existed. Do pimps give girls money, he mocked. We didn't invest a blanking penny. Dropped her at the hotel, invited her for steak, she came, then the club, she came, then the house, she came. Of course, he conveniently left out the part where I never returned to his house. In reality, I was carried back to my own hotel room. Did Tommy know it was a setup the whole time? Was I trafficked?
The more of this story I unraveled, the stranger it all became. Andrew was slowly gaining followers online, and then I realized he had DM'd me a year before we ever met. At the time, I didn't know who he was. I didn't connect the dots when Tommy introduced us. Reading the messages back now, they just have the energy of a throwaway fan interaction. He felt like one of thousands of small accounts that messaged me back then. Hardly any followers, nothing that stood out. In those days, I interacted with my audience constantly. I had no concept of how dangerous it can be when you don't know who you're talking to, letting people get close. letting them feel like they own some part of you. I'd send kind, thoughtful email replies to fans only for them to morph into years-long, one-sided, schizophrenic relationships that slowly wore me down. That openness stopped being safe. We're going to pause right here. And this is very, very important because this is not our first rodeo. We have been doing this since 2017. And I know that sometimes when you guys reach out via email, there are a lot of times when I genuinely want to be able to respond, and your emails are probably still sitting at the bottom of my email box. Like, I kid you not. I've got emails that are sitting there from like 3 years ago I keep meaning to respond to. I just haven't made it back down to the bottom of the list, okay? We get thousands of emails. Like, we get inundated with messages, and I hate that I can't respond, especially to the sincere ones. But in the beginning, just like Lauren did, the internet felt different back then. I don't know how else to explain it. And we would see the same people in the chat all of the time, and we would recognize their names.
I think we replied to every single comment at one point.
And then exactly every single comment that was made, we tried to give a reply, and then it just got too big, and then you couldn't do that anymore. And then people would send you email messages, and they seemed so sincere, and they wanted prayer requests, or they needed advice or something like that. And here you are thinking like, it's my job to do that, right? And the exact same thing that happened to Lauren has happened to us. What happens is people will send you a message, and if you respond via email, there are a lot of sick, weird people out there that they go, oh my gosh, now Leah and Michelle are my friend. And then they keep sending you messages. And then you, because you think that you're ministering to this person, you'll send maybe another, and you don't want to be rude because, you know, back then you responded to emails because that was the nice thing to do. Right? And then just like she read, the next thing you know, you end up with years-long, one-sided, schizophrenic, quote unquote, friendships that started out as fans emailing you. Okay.
And now they want to talk into your life.
And now they want to speak into your life and tell you things. And it's like, wait a minute.
Show up at your house.
I have had to shut down at least 4 quote unquote friendships that started out what I thought was me ministering to someone or us ministering to somebody and giving them advice. And then the next thing they know, they think that they have become best friends with you. And I'm like, wait, how did we even get here? And then walking away feels like rude. But it's like, I don't want you in my life. I don't want you messaging me. You were just a fan. Okay. And so like, I just had to full stop. Like, I know how this happens and I empathize with Lauren. And so now, because we've lived down this, I know that sometimes you guys get disappointed if we don't respond, or we don't respond with a detailed message, and you send us this very, very long life email that I will say, especially when they're very sincere, and I do try to respond to those. And I don't have time to give that same back, but even more than that, I try to keep the messages so that you know that I receive the significance of what you have sent, but I also can't open up a door to become your friend. I cannot do that. Like, we can't do that anymore, right? And so I just want to point that out, that like, I get where she's coming from, and it's so, so, so hard. So here she is saying that she had one of these interactions with Andrew Tate. And it's like, she's going back like, wait a minute, did I get trafficked? And we've seen this.
She says, we exchanged a few messages where Andrew cheered on my activism. She didn't know who this Andrew Tate was. I replied kindly, even made a quip about a funny tweet I'd seen on his page. But when the conversation shifted and he asked if I lived in England, I stopped responding. Questions like that were always a subtle bid to hang out.
Exactly.
Like, no, I'm not going to visit you, random person on the internet. I figured my silence made that clear, but apparently he found other ways to get together through mutual connections and faux business meetings. I agonized over all of this. How intentional was it? How much of it was planned? Even now, I don't know. At that point, what haunted me most was the question of whether Milo was paid to write the article. But frankly, I could think of at least 6 people who would jump at a chance to ruin me, Milo himself included. Just writing that sentence makes me feel like I've been living in an alternate universe, Gossip Girl, with significantly less attractive characters, a bunch of Machiavellian nerds. There were clearly many conversations going on behind the scenes about my future, or lack thereof, would be what it would be in the movement. I knew too much about them all. Still, I couldn't believe the smear campaign had begun before I had even spoken a word about Tate's criminal activities. And I couldn't believe how naive I had been to think that my silence and complicity in this cover-up would protect me. But when you operate like the Tate brothers, you live in a constant state of paranoia, playing whack-a-mole with perceived threats before they even materialize. At any given moment, you're haunted by your past, ironically, often creating the very future you fear.
The entire episode disturbed me to my core. To their credit, their plan worked. They got their results. They psychologically broke me. I never wanted to face these people again. Even if Andrew wasn't actively paying for it, he was actively a part of creating and promoting the article. Andrew had been plotting to position himself as a hero of the right-wing media for a while. He'd been reaching out and building as many connections as possible with figures in the media sphere, flying them out to his compound in Romania, giving them donations, gathering information on them. My public profile was much bigger than his at the time, and I held significant influence over the dissident right-wing audience. For him to break into that space, he would need to eliminate any potential threats, especially a threat like me, who could turn my loyal audience against him before he'd even managed to get his brand going. I wouldn't put all these pieces together for a while, but at the time, all I knew was that my audience was gone now. Aside from a handful of fans and friends I personally knew, my most dedicated political followers had already branded me a traitor and a whore, believing that I had vanished before the full force of these allegations hit, knowing what was coming. Although it would still take Tate some time before he was able to properly enter the right-wing media space, I watched from afar as his public profile grew bit by bit. Strange, seemingly inorganic interviews began to emerge with personalities he had encountered in my former arena, appearing with increasing frequency. I was one of very few watching closely then. I'm not sure anyone else saw the repeated stories about him seemingly amplified by bots, his early failed attempts to manufacture fame. He was dedicated, I'll give him that, and eventually he got the formula right.
Now you must be asking yourself, why didn't I just sue Milo for defamation, get some extra cash for my political retirement, and clear my name? The truth is that the general public, those who don't live in the online or media world, have a profoundly skewed perception of how defamation laws actually work. In reality, defamation law is largely designed to protect the wealthy. It's not meant for the average person, and certainly not for mid-tier internet celebrities like me. Take my Wikipedia page, for example. It has never represented me accurately. It was a carefully curated hit piece managed by anonymous activists who despise me. Even Larry Sanger, Wikipedia's co-founder, had warned that the site had become an activist-controlled narrative machine. But correcting the record wasn't an option. Wikipedia isn't a publisher. It's a platform where anonymous editors shape public perception, often with no oversight. To this day, one of the opening paragraphs of my page still falsely states that I was demonetized from YouTube and banned from GoFundMe, neither of which ever happened. But the truth isn't a requirement for Wikipedia. What matters is that what a handful of dedicated editors decide is the official story. Wikipedia itself couldn't be held accountable anyway, and tracking down the individual editors responsible would require a Nordic order just to uncover their identities. Assuming they weren't scattered across different jurisdictions where legal action would be impossible, even if I pursued a case, I'd need a six-figure retainer just to get started. While suing someone like Milo for defamation wouldn't come with the same hurdles as going after Wikipedia, it would still involve the same costs. Not to mention that once you're classified as a public figure, the press is granted significant leeway to publish whatever opinions they choose about you. The internet is a dangerous place, and these lessons aren't taught in school. They're ones I learned firsthand, although credit where credit is due to the few teachers who warned us not to use Wikipedia as a source, and even more so those who encouraged a general healthy skepticism in all media.
At the end of the day, I couldn't respond to the accusations, even if I wanted to. It felt unjust, but I accepted it as the cost of moving from my old life to a new one. I stopped looking. I didn't care anymore. My real life needed me. It was time to move on. At least that's what I told myself, but deep down, I did care. My soul ached. I felt betrayed, not just by the online world, but by the very people I had risked everything for. When we talk about parasocial relationships, it's usually the fans who are looking into a celebrity's life. What we don't discuss as much as the parasocial bond creators develop with their audience. I felt a sense of ownership over them. I believed they owed me loyalty. I had sacrificed so much for them, lost part of my soul for them, faced imprisonment for them, and put my life on the line for them. But the truth is, they never owed me anything. They were never mine to begin with. I had built a parasocial relationship with them just as much as they had with me. And in many ways, I was the one who mistook their attention for something deeper, something personal. I wanted their loyalty, but I should have asked myself, loyalty to what? A version of me that they had built in their heads, or the real me who had never really been the person they imagined in the first place?
I sank into a deep depression. Everything I'd built had been lost. I watched people I previously called friends mock and speculate about my life. The same accounts professing their love for me days earlier were now cheering on my demise. I blamed everyone but myself. The situation was messed up. There's no doubt about that. But I wasn't setting myself up for success by refusing to see how my own choices had led me there. I had sold my soul. Enjoying the praise of people who don't truly know you is a dangerous game because they don't know you. They can be made to believe anything about you, and it's not their job to dig deeper, to find out who you really are. They don't owe me that. Maybe what they owe themselves, though, is to stop caring as much about the drama of the famous, because in the end, the obsession is as much of a perversion of the mind as my own obsession with their thoughts. At the end of the day, I got on the fame train and I rode it until it was gaining at speeds that threatened to kill me before I jumped off. And then I was angry at the train for taking me so far. I may not have known exactly what I was getting into, but no one forced me onto that train. I wasn't a helpless passenger. I wanted the ride. I thrived on the speed, the attention, the sense of purpose it gave me. I say I jumped off, but really the train just went off the rails. It stopped being fun. I like to focus on the crash, on my victimhood. But the part that's hardest to admit, I was angry that the train had stopped serving me.
Wow. Mike says, we'll have to buy the audiobook with Leah and Michelle reading it. Lancer says, Lauren's friends like Ashton Birdie have been trying to link everything right-wing media to Tate, even if they never met, even Tim Pool. So here's what we're going to do.
What? I was going to play. This is Tommy's reaction.
I don't want to play that. Do I have to?
I want you to see how these people are going are reacting. This is the world.
Okay.
Tommy says, I saw her kissing him as they left their hotel room. Fact.
Here's a horrible fact, okay? I was there when Lauren Southern travelled to Romania with Andrew Tate. I was in the hotel room next door. When I walked out in the morning when we were leaving, Lauren Southern's at the door kissing him, okay? So when you read what she says there, like he's raped her, that's what she's implying. It's a bit weird to be kissing him on his door and then get in the car and message him the whole way. Insanity.
So here's the thing. We have a case of he said, she said. And here's the problem. We have been talking about Andrew Tate for years on this show. We know that he's the lowest scum of the earth. And we have heard in his own words that we have played here tonight about him choking women.
Mm-hmm.
If you missed the part where Lauren says that she did go to the hospital and documented a week later the asphyxiation. Years before any other women came out publicly to accuse him of that. So that's not something like she said, I would have to be clairvoyant. So I'm sitting here and we're reading this, and Leah told me, I didn't read this story today. Leah did. And she told me about it. And I guess because this is not something that like we have watched from afar over the years. These are real people.
Yeah.
These are real people that have shaped, whether you want to admit it or not, they have shaped where you're at today in your political views. Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's kind of like the founding fathers, essentially. Like, I'm sorry, they have shaped the social media as far as right-wing political commentary goes from the get-go. They were the people at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear Lauren's story, I hear sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
I hear openness. I hear honesty.
She's probably leaving things out. Why do you want to tell everything about yourself?
I hear somebody, like, I totally and utterly believe when she says, I did not come out about this because I knew that it was going to make me look terrible. Mm-hmm. And I knew that people were going to take the things that I said and they were going to twist them and they were going to distort them and they were going to make it all seem like it wasn't the way that I'm portraying it. I get her. Like, I totally get where she's coming from. And when I look at these men, they're not even men, they're demons. And now that Tommy is doubling down, I'm sorry. Like, I'm done. Tommy's dead to me. Like, I really thought that he was having like a come to Jesus moment. And here's the thing about these people, guys. Right now, we are being played by people who understand that becoming a Christian is the most popular and redeeming thing that they can do. So they're going to hide behind Christianity to cover up who they really and truly are. Because they've come to realize, like, wait a minute, I've done all of this stuff, but if I become a Christian, then I can explain away all of those things and say, but God has forgiven me. Okay? So now we've got real salvations mixed in with these false salvations. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Andrew Tate is a liar, that he is a manipulator, and that I don't know what I can say on this show, and I don't think it really matters. I believe Andrew Tate to be a full-on rapist, and that the things that he has done to women could have possibly even led to their death that was also covered up.
In a court hearing related to his prison segregation at Woodhill, Robinson admitted to being a habitual drug user.
Mike says they are doing a good job reading it. Thank you, Mike. That's awesome. I'm just sick to my stomach, if I'm being honest, because, like, I know that Lauren says she's not doing interviews. Leah did reach out to her to say, hey, if you want to come on our show. She probably won't, A, because she doesn't know us, and B, because she says that she's not going to do any interviews about this. Okay, that's fine. But I just, if Lauren ever were to watch this episode, what I would like to say, if I could say anything to Lauren, is it's not your fault the way that you're taking it. Okay, there are a lot of things that you should be taking responsibility for. But at the same time, when you are surrounded by demons and those demons attack you. And so what we've been covering on the Healing for the Fractured Soul is grown men surrounding themselves around young, impressionable girls and using the church and God to get them to do what they want them to do. What we are seeing with Tommy and Andrew, and I can't speak for Kaylin and George, but specifically Tommy and Andrew are at least 10 years older than Lauren. They are full-grown men. They knew exactly what they were doing. And so Lauren has found herself, through bad decisions. But when you find yourself in the presence of demons and you have no way of defending yourself, those demons will ravage you. And so I want to go back to address something briefly. And this is very important for our show. Like, it could be the most important thing for the whole show.
So Hillary
what did I just say? I said, I want to get back to something that I think could be the most important thing for the whole show. I
want to give a few more details. Okay, because that really
I can hold on to
me.
the really important thing. I'll hold on.
Hold
she
it.
just patted me on the leg. I'm gonna hold it. It's
Hold
not
on,
going anywhere.
because this is bothering me about Tommy, and Tommy is so convincing. So Hillary Crowder is weighing in on this.
Steven Crowder of Crowder and the Mug Club and all that. His wife has left him, and he was abusive to her, and so she's weighing in on this.
Commenting on Tommy's saying that he saw Lauren kiss him. She says, "You never saw Lauren in the hotel. You only saw her in the taxi the next morning. You never ask for this burden of proof for any women you defend from Muslim grooming gangs, but when it's your friend who has been accused by dozens of women who have credible claims, including against a minor, do you?"
You do.
You do? How did Lauren know that Tate's MO was asphyxiation and she put it in a hospital report years before Vice News reported that was his MO?
She says something isn't adding up, mate.
Lucy Brown, who used to work with Tommy Robinson, says, "What about these girls too, Tommy? Are they lying whores as well?" So Tommy is lying.
Literally.
Bold-faced lying.
Literally.
That he's like, "Well, I saw him kiss her." And just say, and you can see how this works. Just say this, Tommy. Tommy's on a payroll.
It's not just a payroll, okay? So I'm going to save my
and he's got
my most important thing for a second. I will set that to the side. Leah. All right, so I'm walking in a righteousness with God right now in my life that I have not walked in probably ever. Okay? I am fearless. When you know that you're right and you know that God is going to cover you, you're good to go. I would like to say that has been me my whole life. That has not been me my whole life. That has been me on and off throughout my life. This clip that I used in our intro, when Leah and I did that clip, we had just been kicked off of both of our YouTube channels, and we had just done 2 episodes with the Gibson girls about Andrew Tate. And then we found out that Andrew Tate has paid people to, like piranhas, go and rip apart anybody's social media presence.
There are so many Tate bots and all these
okay
and online.
So we made that clip and I was so excited about sharing that clip. And then I didn't share it. Do you know why? Because the last frontier that had not been taken down was my Facebook. And I was terrified of losing it. I was afraid of Andrew Tate and his bots. Kid you not. I will admit it. That man and his bots and his power and his control scared me. And I'm not as scared of anything or anyone. Okay, now I'm not now. Okay, but at that time, because I had just been punched down by losing my YouTube channels, I was still weak. Okay. Andrew Tate, for other people, is an absolutely terrifying human being. He's not for me, not now, but he is scary for people, and he threatens to kill people. He threatens to kill them socially. And here's the problem. He can do both. Like literally. So it's all fine and good to stand by and just say, "Oh, he's a lowlife, nothing, nobody." No, he is a highly skilled criminal who has paid off entire governments and has managed to infiltrate himself into the highest ranks of MAGA and convince them to defend him. He is a genius. That man is an absolute unequivocal genius. If you can get Candace Owens on your side, if you can get Tucker Carlson on your side, he has like all of MAGA defending him when it's literally a satanic witchcraft that he performs. And by the way, we've covered this on our episodes. He has a shaman above him, like another person we know, Scott Kesterson, has a shaman above him. And yes, we're going to get into that in an expose that controls all of this stuff. Like witchcraft, demonic stuff. Okay? And so I'm sorry, but this level of demonic activity is running rampant in the MAGA movement. And so when it comes to somebody like Lauren, who doesn't want to speak out, Probably because she's terrified of what he will do to her, and with good cause, because look at what he and Milo did do already. They smeared her in front of everybody. And thank God Leah and I are not big names. Okay? Because one can only imagine what would come out. Right? So I do want to get to the most important part of this whole thing. Lauren, if you're watching this, please, this is one of the reasons why I would like for you to reach out to me. But when you post at the end of the article, and this is the mistake that every single one of these people make, I like to believe that there is a possibility of redemption for Andrew Tate, she says. It is not necessary for you to put that in there, even if you believe it. But the very fact that you believe it means that you have an open demonic door to his demons that are still ravaging you right now, even after written your book and all of these articles, all these chapters. When you have to put in there, or your thoughts are even saying, but I want him to be redeemed. Jesus says there is a sin that is unto death, and I do not say that you should pray for it. And when Leah and I were making our phone calls, and since we're making all of this public now on tonight's show about Scott Kesterson to so many people, there were a couple of people that wanted to say, but we need to pray for his soul then. Nope. No. It would cost my soul to pray for his. And Lauren, it could cost your soul to pray for Andrew's. Mm-hmm. And certainly could cost your life. And it certainly could cost my life. So I will not. I will not sacrifice my family. I will not sacrifice myself. And I will not sacrifice my salvation to pray for a demon. Andrew Tate is so ravaged with demons. Mm-hmm. And what he has done. There's a reason why in society, and Leah and I have talked about this, why we have a saying that says the deepest, darkest place in hell is reserved for such a person. There are different levels of hell. Because Jesus says in Matthew 18, it would be better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be cast in the sea than for you to harm one of these little ones. We cannot have sympathy, empathy, pity. This is not praying for your neighbor that did you wrong stuff. That's not what we're talking about. You're supposed to pray for your brother, okay? If your brother sins against you, how many times do you forgive them? 7 times 70. These are maniacal, completely demon-possessed monsters. And what happens when you open a door of empathy or sympathy or try to say he's still human? No, he is not. Andrew Tate ceased to be human a long time ago. There is not a human shred left for this man. And I have had it up to here with people empathizing and sympathizing and pitying and saying we need to pray for the souls of criminals and rapists and child molesters. Stop it. You are not my friend. We are not on the same side. This is a vital message that you guys get through. Please hear me on this. You have got to stop praying for the souls of your abusers. You are hearing this here, and if that makes you not want to watch my show anymore, I'm sorry. Now, there are different levels of abusers. I'm not talking about your mom that you're, like, let's say you're in your 40s or 50s and your mom's in her 70s or 80s or whatever, like our best friend is dealing with this and she's trying to work with her mom. She's trying to pray for her mom and her mom's kind of abusive, I'm not talking about that kind of abusers. I'm talking about your molesters. I'm talking about the people that have literally punched you in the face. I'm talking about the people that have used you and abused you and left you for dead, either spiritually or physically. the monsters. That's what I'm talking about, okay? If there's people that have done you wrong, whatever, been slightly abusive, okay, pray for them. I don't care. But when they cross that line, and you know what line I'm talking about, we have got to stop as a society trying to rescue these people and go back and try to rescue the people that they have abused. You don't waste a breath on their salvation. Do not waste a breath or a thought. You hand them over to Satan for the destruction of their flesh. That's it. Full stop. And I'm so done with people praying for the souls of the abusers. Like, I'm over it. Like, I am literally, this last full stop. And I'm sorry if I sound adamant, but like, I don't know how else to get it through your guys' head, because you want to play this Christian game. And do you know why you do it? Do you know why you do it? Because I've done it. I know. Lee and I have had these conversations, and I have it when I had to come out of my illusion from Scott Kesterson that I came out of in January of this year. Leah came out of it in May of last year. And I still wanted to defend. Isn't there something left? No, there's nothing. Nothing left in that man. Nothing left. And we haven't done our show yet. There is nothing left in Andrew Tate. So I've been there, all right? But what happens when you leave that door open, those demons that were already ravaging you through that person, they always have access to you forever. So I may sound fervent about it, but I'm that serious, all right? And maybe some of you guys saw on my personal Facebook page, I made a post and I said, sometimes when your abusers no longer have access to you, they will use people who do have access to you to still try to get to you. And it is okay and oftentimes necessary for you to deny access to that person as well. So that's what I did a couple of days ago. I ain't messing around. I ain't playing, because my family's life is on the line. My life is on the line. So when we look at Lauren, this is what I would say to you. Lauren, close every door that you have, including any kind of empathy that says that this man is human, because Andrew Tate has no shred of humanity left inside of him. He has no chance of being saved left inside of him. Oh, Michelle, there's always a chance. No, there's not. And that's unbiblical. And I'm done.
I'm going to play this last video here. If you go to my page of Tommy Robinson, telling everybody to support Andrew Tate. I just go to my profile. Scroll down there, that one. Oh, up.
Oh, that same shirt?
The little one, the little one.
Okay. Here we go.
So when all the stuff come out about Andrew Tate, and a lot of my supporters fell out of me, I lost 25% of my subscription base, yeah, because I refused to condemn it, and I refused to come out. And a lot of my supporters don't like the fact that he's converted. A lot of them claim they don't like the way he's made his money through women. A lot of them
trafficking women,
claim the moral thing around that. So there's been all these issues going on in my own base, yeah?
Yeah.
But I've said, no, this is lies, yeah? You cannot trust anything that they're saying. When they put someone up on TV, no longer I could trust any of them. When there's someone sitting talking, I think, how much have you been paid? They pay the girls. And I guarantee you they've been in contact with every girl Andrew Tate's ever contacted. I guarantee you.
Yeah, no, they have.
I guarantee you.
He even said it.
Yeah, I guarantee you.
Like 50K.
Yeah, and it won't be the government, because the government keep their hands clean. It won't be the police. It won't be the Romanian officials. It'll be these NGO organisations.
Yeah.
And they come in and they do the dirty work. And they have been behind putting people in prison for terrorism and everything, these groups. I question everything about it, yeah, because I've seen how they operate. And I actually done a documentary. I got 5 different people covertly recorded who were paid by this group. 5 different people who were paid. Now, this story, and obviously the documentary I made is not about Andrew Tate, but you can take exactly what's happened with me. You can take it, but you can multiply. You can magnify it for Andrew Tate because of the level of influence he created upon the youth that they want to stop. So
I can't.
That is a coked up Tommy Robinson who's still using drugs.
That was from 2 years ago?
That was from January of this year.
Oh, wow.
For him, he doesn't care about traffic victims. He's saying the women are all lying. We've played the clips. There's no lying women because he has a whole university called the Pimping Hose degree where he is a pimp that teaches women how to teaches women how to do.
Oh, yeah. But the Pimping Hose degree is teaching men how to teach women
how to become prostitutes online. Anybody who would defend him is beyond the pale. And I have to say tonight, and I'm going to sign off here because I kept telling Michelle we're going to do a short show tonight, but here we are again. I'm sorry for supporting Tommy Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know ups and downs about Lauren Southern. I'm sure she's hiding all kind of skeletons in her closet. I'm not saying that she's a good person. I'm not saying you should go and follow her at all.
No, she needs more Jesus.
Please don't follow her, actually, like as using her for advice. She obviously is not a good person to get advice from. But she says something here. She says, she came of age. She grew up in this right-wing atmosphere that they were saying one thing. Mm-hmm. You want to be a Christian. You want to settle down. You want to do all these things. And I do believe it was a satanic attack to insert a Andrew Tate into this mix. But Tommy was doing coke before that. From what I understand, I guess he's meeting with prostitutes. And he found a shtick. And he found a way to really convince people of things. And I sit over here and I'm like, God, thank you for taking away. I believe maybe it was you, God, but I don't think it was the devil, for keeping my subscribers at 10,000.
300. 10,300.
For 4 years or however long. And not allowing us to get those numbers and not allowing us to get caught up in what do you say and to actually mature truly in this space to prove to ourselves and you guys and everybody else. Nobody's tried to buy us, so I don't know how that would work out. But the reason why nobody's tried to buy us is because our message is not what they want to amplify anyways. And the only thing that the devil could do was bring around somebody like Scott Kesterson to try to pull us away from the message and the gospel of Jesus Christ and try to, I don't know what his plan was, but we'll get into it one
exactly
day.
What his plan was.
But what was the devil's plan in it all? Like what was, I don't quite understand it, but it was basically to shut us up because I believe, and I don't say this like Michelle says, I don't say this arrogantly at all. I'm not saying that we have it right, but in this space, we have it right more than other people. And what I mean by right is just, there's very few biblically based people that are applying the word of God for non-financial gain to political matters. We can admit to when we get things wrong, and that's what everybody should do. And I appreciate when people say, hey, I didn't know this about Tommy. He was saying a lot of things that I agreed with, and I didn't know this information. And now that I know this information, then I have to rethink some things.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't call out the grooming gangs. It doesn't, those are the right things. Okay? It might have been the right thing at the wrong time with the wrong person, right? And I saw Jada Franson, who was like Britain First, and she's come out against Tommy, and she's been trying so hard to be like, I've been in this space and it ruined me too. Okay? And I kind of got caught up in it and everything like that. And I'm kind of glad we weren't super boots on the ground in all these places and making too many connections that had to burn too many bridges.
You know why we weren't? Because our mom taught us better.
Yeah.
My mom taught us to keep your guard up.
She did, but we also had grounding. People would ask us to do things, but we couldn't because we had to be here for our mom and our Uncle Jack. So, like, we couldn't go gallivanting around the world. I would have liked to.
Yeah, but there were a lot of things that we were asked to do that we could have done that we said no.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, we couldn't leave the country when everybody was saying, hey, come to the UK.
Right.
Like, it was kind of a thought. And what if? And I just thank God that didn't happen. And that it's now coming to light. And we've been praying, and I'll end with this. I was talking about this with Michelle. And Donald Trump came along around 2015, 2016, and Michelle and I did all these righteous rants against him because he said sexual things about his daughter. He said, look, she's so hot, I should be dating her. Like, that's...
If she wasn't my daughter, I would date her.
She's like, that's sick. And, he dated Melania, and it comes out like he really did have sex with the porn star girl while Melania was 5 months pregnant. And like, Melania herself is like 20 years younger than Trump, and Trump being all handsy, and like only perverts, like fund the Miss America pageant because you want to, you surround yourself by all these young, beautiful girls. Only perverts do that. And so what happened is, if you start to go down that route of supporting Donald Trump, you're going to end up at one way or another, you're going to end up with perverts. And that's why we have to unhook our train, like, and officially, if you see an official thing, I am officially, for spiritual reasons, I'm completely announcing that from this point forward, I have to be against Donald Trump.
100%.
Because the perversion that has entered into all of these Christian lives comes through making excuses for Donald Trump and his massive amounts of perversion. Super perversion. And then now we're seeing with him telling us to shut up about Jeffrey Epstein, who is so incredibly perverted, and sex trafficking girls and women. I don't care if they're over 18. You don't traffic people, okay? That is how an Andrew Tate makes it in, because the devil has you making excuses for Donald Trump at this level, and then suddenly you're making excuses here, and you're making excuses here, and you're making excuses here. Now, we dialed back because of the abortion. And I remember we always said we never were on the Trump train, that we would run beside you guys. And I always wanted to be with MAGA. I wanted to be with the people who wanted to, close the borders, pro-life, expose the deep state, expose
I think there's
the
probably
Clintons.
clips that have probably been deleted because YouTube has deleted all of our videos, where you might find us at some point leading up to the 2020 election where we're like, we're just totally on the Trump train now. Like, or even like afterwards when the election was stolen, and like us actually saying that, but like deep down inside, it was never real.
Yeah. And I was never, so I see now the spiritual lens of this whole thing is the devil wants everybody to be perverted, because sexual sin is against the temple. You are the temple of God. And Paul talks about this. And, we're trying to expose sex trafficking. So we're promoting Sound of Freedom, not knowing that Tim Ballard set up a kind of sex trafficking ring himself, supported sex trafficking, and he's paying prostitutes, and we have to do an expose on him. So we're here now, and I look at the MAGA people, and I have to wave goodbye, and you'll see, Michelle and I, we're making our products to support our family, because we feel like we need to say things, but it takes a lot of time to do it. So it is kind of like a second job, and we don't get paid to do it. And I just want to take a moment to thank you guys who stick with us, to thank you guys who do donate, so that we can, it does take away from our other business. And so we tried to go professional, but that didn't work, and that's fine. And so those of you who do support us, just know that we pets it a little bit less because you support us. Because normally, we're out, 3 or 4 times a day for one family, and then 3 or 4 times another day for another family. And so, it's hard to bring the shows when we're doing that, when we're in and out. But these aren't any of these people. Tommy's making millions. Andrew Tate's making millions. All these people, even like Ezra Levant now, knowing what he knows about Tommy. And now I can't support Ezra.
It's hard.
And I'm looking, and like my mom was saying, is there anybody telling the truth? And so I don't know. I don't know. But we need, here's the thing. This is the kind of the black pill where people leave. And so they don't speak to an Epstein situation. They don't speak to the border. They don't speak about abortion. They don't do anything because their heroes aren't doing it anymore.
Right.
You're the hero.
Yeah.
You speak. You pray. You post. And it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts of the Lilliputans.
Yeah.
That bring down Gulliver. It's going to be the remnant. It's always been the Davids with the 5 smooth stones, not the David the king, because God didn't want David the king. God wanted David with the 5 smooth stones out there, the shepherd, talking to God every day. So you be the shepherd, talking to God every day, and you're going to get your moment. You'll take down a Goliath.
Amen.
You will. You will. God, I just thank you so much for everybody watching right now. I think that we don't need to be a movement of influencers or podcasters or big names. And I ask you that you bring them all down.
Amen.
And that you raise up an army of your church. So it's not about a head or a face, but it's about a hand and a foot and an arm and a leg. And you're raising them up. You guys, you don't need heroes. You need to be the hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you, Father God, for equipping the saints for the work of the ministry, that you do have prophets and preachers and teachers. I ask you to cleanse our minds and our bodies and hearts. Forgive us in any way in which we have lied, stolen, cheated, had a perverted thought, anything that wasn't of you, because we know that there's no way that we can take down evil when there's any sin inside of us. And as Lauren said, sometimes you have to go through the fire. And I appreciate the line that she said. And I ask you to continue to take her through the fire.
Amen.
And take all these people through the fire, Father God. And if there's anything gold or silver in them, may they remain. But actually just burn. Burn them all. Burn all of us. And let us see what we're made of. Let us see who we are. It's not comfortable. It's awful, actually.
Amen.
But we need to face these things. We need to face, who am I? What am I? What are my motivations? Am I doing this for you? Am I doing this for other people? Am I a servant of, or is there anything in me that's doing this for some other reason? I ask you, Father God, that you support, protect, and provide and equip every saint out there for the work of the real ministry. Now it's time for ministers. The podcasters without Jesus tried it. Those who say they have Jesus are sitting on the sidelines. And there's a new group of men and women who are Christians who have been being trained by the Holy Spirit to begin to speak boldly and righteously against not the Trump administration, but against anything that exalts itself above the knowledge of God. And that I ask you, Father God, the only way these people get exposed and their connections get exposed is when you shine the light. So, Father God, I ask you to shine the light, the right, the left, the middle. Why are we asking you to do this, God? So that the weak and the abused, those who have been taken advantage of, those who have no voices, can be protected. And those who have been preying on people, saying that they're there to protect the weak, but they're not, I ask you to bring them down. I ask that they would repent. I ask that they would have to expose themselves and tell the truth. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. So I'm going to add this. You guys have been hearing us kind of dance around the Scott Kesterson thing, Birds FM thing for
we gotta go.
several months. And so now that the official cat's out of the bag, this is what I would say, because we are at some point we have to do a show about it. I would ask that those of you that follow us and are a part of what I would call the Resistance Chicks family, to please pray for us.
Mm-hmm.
Pray that the show that we do would be led by the Holy Spirit and only by the Holy Spirit. But more than that, please pray a hedge of protection, because the spiritual warfare that we have been under for the past 7 months from the demonic curses, literal curses, coming from Scott and that camp and his prayer warriors, who I believe to be witches, literal. I believe. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just saying I believe them to be. And I believe that they have been actively cursing us. And Leah and I have been over here by ourselves with a group of friends, tearing down every arrow and blocking every arrow. But now that we have you guys, I'm going to ask unashamedly for your continued prayer of cover from curses that are coming from them specifically. You now know what specifically to pray because they have been cursing our family. And that's what we've been fighting. So I'm telling you guys a little bit about it, but we haven't been able to openly say it. But now that the cat's out of the bag, I do believe that prayer cover is warranted. Especially since whenever Leah and I go after these demonic forces, whether it's John MacArthur like we did last night, or Mike Bickle, or Andrew Tate, and all of that, a huge slew of demonic arrows get fired at us. Now we quench them, but man, it's painful and it's really hard. Now I know that you guys are under attack too, and we pray for you. We may not know your specific stories, but sometimes when we hear them, we do pray specifically for you guys, but we do pray a hedge of protection over the Resistance Chicks family consistently. So now I'm giving you guys something very specific that you can pray for now that you know. And since we do live a public life and everything is free online, and I don't know what's going to get back to them after this show, because we've got a lot of co-mingling here going on, and bigger, harder stuff could come, but we're okay because God has us. But your prayers help tremendously. Like the prayers work. Your prayers help to save my mom's life, like legit. So thank you guys ahead of time for doing that. Your prayers and your cover mean more to us than we can possibly say. So I think that's it for tonight's show. Leah wanted to do a short one, but when you go into this deep, and I didn't know it was going to take that long to read her story, Leah probably sped read it, thinking she could speed read out loud.
It took me about 30 minutes to read it, yeah.
Right, but it takes much longer to read out loud with emphasis. So we love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's actually the truth, I'm so thankful for each and every single one of you and your guys.
If you guys would like to support us, where can they support us?
So if you want to support us, you can go to resistancechicks.com. You no longer have to do PayPal, although the people that are donating via PayPal, by all means, just keep that up. That's fine. You guys are awesome. Thank you. We are so thankful for those of you that do that. We have monthly supporters that do PayPal. We have and we have just random gifts. But if you go to resistancechicks.com, you can just click on like the support button there, and you can either be a monthly subscriber or you can just do a one-time donation. All of that helps. But I will tell you what I really love. I love it when your orders come in from the store, and that is a way of supporting us. Okay. So like, that's how I count it. Like, thank you. Yes, you're getting a product, and yes, we are tent makers, but I consider it support. So I thank all of you guys that make purchases at the store. Like, it makes my whole day when they come in, and I get to write the notes, and I get to literally, I got some inside baseball from an order that came in this weekend, and she was like, I'm ordering this for so-and-so, and can you pray this specifically for them? So I did, as I'm packaging up their products. I'm happy to do that. I don't ever want it to become like I pay for prayer. That's not it. I'm going to just pray for you anyway. Like, that's just what I do. And so, like, why would I not? Like, I'm praying while I'm making the products. Why not make it specific for the people that I'm sending them to? So I love doing that. So you guys can go to shop.resistancechicks.com. If you're watching on Rumble, it's super easy. You can just click the subscribe button there. And I think that they let you do different amounts now. I don't know. Like, you can become a monthly subscriber. The people that have the little whale next to their name, they're a subscriber. So I'm so thankful for each and every single one of you. $5 a month, a cup of coffee. Like, it helps. Like, it truly helps. You have no idea. But more than that, for those of you that just view and you comment and you like and you share, like that, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us, even when you disagree with us. Like, it really means a lot.
Yeah.
So we will see you guys probably tomorrow night for Revolutionary Revivalists, but for sure on Friday for our headline news, which I'm sure will be amazing. Right? All right. We'll see you next time right here from resistancechicks.com. You guys are awesome, and I'm praying for you daily.